May 7th, 2020 board meeting. My name is Greg Lippy, President of the Board. Before we convene, please be advised that the meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-29-20. Participants watching the webcast will only be able to observe the meeting. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. All lines are currently on mute. As I facilitate this meeting, with the exception of our council, to allow for proceeding in an orderly manner and with full participation, lines will remain on mute until I direct staff to open them for public comments. I will announce when we are accepting public comments on the various issues, and staff will open the lines as appropriate. Similar to our last WebEx meeting, 2 minutes will be allotted to each individual providing comments. This approach is necessary to facilitate the meeting and ensure the board has the opportunity to complete its necessary business. I appreciate everyone's understanding and patience as we navigate this meeting format. I will now ask staff moderating the meeting to provide general instructions. Please go ahead.
Thank you. This is the Pharmacy Board moderator. Just wanted to go over some of the logistics of how the meeting will be run from a public comment perspective. Presenter, if you could put up the question and answer slide so folks have a visual of what the public comment. We will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on. You see a visual of what that will look like on the screen right now. And members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. The moderator, myself, will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion, the individual's microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When asking your question, please make sure the question is directed at all panelists or the host in the dropdown. Also, if any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subject to profane language. And while you criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I'll provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. And finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect any background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones of panelists, I will go ahead and interject or mute their microphone to support the meeting moving forward. All right, that concludes my comments, Board President.
Thank you. As indicated on the agenda, the board will convene in closed session after deliberating on all the open session items except for adjournment. Due to technological limitations, adjournment will not be broadcast. Adjournment will immediately follow closed session, and there will be no other items of business discussed. I will now take roll call to establish a quorum. Debbie Veal. Please remember to unmute. I got you.
Okay, thanks.
Maria Serpa.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Brooks.
Here.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Here.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez.
Here.
Thank you. Albert Wong.
Here.
Thank you. Shirley Kim.
Here.
Okay, I know she's going to be going in and out. Are you there now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Jig Patel.
I'm here.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Here.
Thank you. And I am here. With a quorum being established, the board will now entertain public comments for items not on the agenda. To facilitate this portion of the meeting, as previously announced, staff will open up the phone line for individuals to provide the opportunity to provide public comment. You are not required to identify yourself, but you may do so. As we open the lines, I remind everyone that the board cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place an item on a future agenda. Members, following review of the public comments, I will ask staff to open the lines for members to request that any of these items be placed on a future agenda. We're now open for public comments.
Thank you, Board President. I will open up the question and answer feature now. And as I mentioned, members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. And then I will unmute your microphones and call on you in the order of request request to make a comment. So I've got a few trickling in, so we'll start unmuting individuals' microphones in just one moment. The first individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment is Susan Bonilla. Susan, I will be unmuting your microphone in one moment. All right, Susan, I will be unmuting your microphone now. Susan, you are unmuted.
Hello, this is Susan Bonilla. I just wanted to introduce myself to the full board. I'm the new CEO for the California Pharmacists Association. Wanted to greet you. I look forward to greeting you in person, hopefully before too many more months pass. Been on the job here at the California Pharmacists Association for just over 2 months, so it's all been COVID, and but I want to thank you for your service on the board, and again, look forward to meeting you. Hope you have a very productive meeting today, and we'll sign off now and hopefully see you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan, and good luck on your new job.
All right, Board President, Susan is the only individual who's indicated that she would like to make a comment. Would you like me to wait a few more moments?
Just a couple.
Okay. And I'll take this opportunity to remind individuals that you can access the public comment feature should in the lower right of your screen. And if you insert the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," you will then be able to make a comment as I will call on you and unmute your microphone. I'll pause just a few more moments to allow people to make a comment if they would like.
Well, it looks like we're not going to get any. Let's just go ahead.
Okay. I will close out the question and answer now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next, agenda item 3A. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the January 29, January 30, 2020 board meeting minutes. Members, are there any comments on the minutes? Please, when you speak, remember to open your line and identify yourself prior to making your comments. Also, please restrict your comments to substantive items. I'm aware there are some minor typos and they will be corrected. Please go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of January 29th, 2020. Requires attention.
Thank you, Ricardo. Do we have a second?
Second, Ryan Brooks.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay. I'm going to call names for the vote. Do we have any public comments first? No. Okay. Debbie Veal.
I will go ahead and I will go ahead, Board President, open up the public comment window briefly so we can see if there are any public comments. That question and answer feature is open again now, so I'd remind members of the public if you'd like to make a comment, you can do so by indicating I would like to make a comment in the question and answer box as you see displayed on your screen. And you will have 2 minutes then to make your comments after I unmute your microphone. We don't have anybody indicating they would like to make a comment, Board President.
Okay, with a motion and second on the floor, I'll now open the discussion. Motion, second, comment, no comments. I'm not going to take roll call vote. Debbie Veal?
Approve, or agree, or yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, Ryan Brooks?
Yes.
Great. Maria Serpa?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler?
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo? Remember to unmute. Ricardo? Okay, I'm going to jump over to Albert for the moment. Albert Wong?
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley Kim?
Yes.
Thank you. Jig Patel?
Yes.
Thank you. Sung Oh?
I support.
Thank you. And so do I. Very good.
Hey, Greg, did you call my name? I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I did. I did.
It didn't come out, so I don't know what happened.
Sorry. Oh, okay. So are you voting yes?
Yes, I'm voting yes. It just did.
Great.
Silent.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We'll now move on to item 3B. This is for the approval of the March 27th, 2020 board meeting minutes. Are there any comments from members? No comments? Okay. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of March 27th, 2020. Ricardo.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricardo. Do we have a second?
This is Cheryl Butler.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any moderator open up the lines for the public to comment, please? Any
All right,
public
doing that
comments?
now. We've opened up the line for public comment, so members of the public, please indicate you would like to make a comment by typing in the phrase, I would like to make a comment in the comment window that is currently open. You'll then have 2 minutes to make your comments if you indicate you would like to make a comment. Board President, there's no one indicating they would like to make a comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item, agenda item number 4. Members, our next item for action is agenda item 4, board officer elections. As included in our member procedure manual, officers shall serve a 1-year. Is somebody commenting?
President Lippy, yes. This is Ann. I apologize for the interruption. Would you mind just taking a quick vote on the approval of the minutes, please?
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, let's take a vote on the approval of the minutes. Maria Serpa.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler. Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Hear
you.
me?
Ryan Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you. Debbie Veal.
Yes.
Thank you. Albert Wong.
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley Kim.
Yes.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
Yes.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Yes.
Thank you, and I'm a yes also. All right, now we will move on to agenda item 4. As I begin to say, as included in our member procedure manual, officers shall serve a 1-year term effective June 1 and may be reelected for consecutive terms. Before I open the lines for the election of officers, I'd like to say something. It's been a true honor and a privilege to serve as your president. In the current crisis situation, it's also been both challenging and rewarding. If you believe that as we continue to navigate through the crisis, that continuity of leadership is important, and if you've been satisfied with our performance thus far, and I know Debbie Veal as well, would be proud to serve one more term as president and vice president. Thank you. Members, I will now accept nominations for the office of president. Please, when you speak. Hello? Oh, yes.
Well, I was just going to offer a nomination, but I'll let you finish your statement. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Please, when you speak, remember to open your line and identify yourself prior to making your nomination. Thank you. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yeah, this is Ricardo Sanchez.
I would like to nominate Greg Lippy as president.
Thank you, Debbie. Ricardo?
Yeah, I don't know why my audio is going out, even if I unmute it. But I wanted to also make the nomination. That's why I mentioned my name first here, for Maria Serpa for president.
Okay, thank you. Do we have more nominations? No? Okay. With nominations made, I will now request any public comments on the nominations. As stated earlier, please signify that you would like to make a comment by raising your hand. Moderator, please open the line for individuals wishing to make a comment.
All right, we have opened up the question and answer feature, and you can insert the phrase, I would like to make a comment in the question and answer box. If you would like to make a comment, you will then have 2 minutes to make your comment. So we will pause just a few more moments to allow members of the public an opportunity to indicate that they would like to make a comment.
President and Maria for treasurer. Is that how we're doing?
Well, we will do it in order, yes. But right now, it's just for president.
And there are 2 nominations, is that correct?
Right. There are 2 nominations, which is me and Maria Serpa.
So I would ask the board members as you go, as the roll is taken, to indicate who you would be voting for president.
Correct. Okay. I'm going to start with Debbie Veal.
I will nominate. I will vote for Greg Lippy for president.
Thank you. Ryan Brooks.
Greg Lippy for president.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Greg Lippy for president.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez.
Maria Serpa for president.
Thank you. Albert Wong. Albert? I'll come
Maria
back. Did you?
Serpa.
Okay. Shirley Kim.
Greg Lippy for president.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
Greg Lippy for president.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
I vote for Greg.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
For myself, Maria Serpa.
Okay. Let's see. 4, 5, 6 for Greg Lippy, 3 for Maria Serpa. And actually, it will be 7 because I'll vote for me too. Okay. Looks like I'm going to be serving another term. Thank you, everybody. Next, let's see, we will go on for nominations for vice president, and I will nominate Debbie Veal. Do we have additional nominations, please?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Maria Serpa for vice president.
Okay, thank you. Any more nominations?
Hi, this is Song. May I nominate Cheryl Butler for vice president?
Thank you. Any additional nominations?
Thank you so much, Song, but I declined from running for president. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so right now we have Debbie and we have Maria. Do we have additional nominations?
Be heard. Board President, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment.
Okay, in that case, I will now take a roll call for the vote. Okay, let's start with Maria Serpa.
Greg, I hear you said that there were 2 nominees, but I didn't hear that I was nominated. So I just wanted to confirm.
You are. It's Debbie and you, so I assume you're going to vote for yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, but I didn't hear the nomination, so I don't know who nominated you, but thank you. I'll vote for myself.
It was Ricardo. Okay. Ryan Brooks.
Debbie Veal.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Debbie Veal.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez. Shall I put you down for Maria? Ricardo, I can't hear you. Well, you nominated her, so I know you're going to vote. So let's go on. Albert Wong.
No, well, hold on. Greg?
Yeah.
Look, yeah, this is Ricardo Sanchez. I'm being muted out. I'm not able to hear. It's like I'm purposely, or I'm just being muted out. I can't hear anybody. So I am clicking on mute and unmute to speak and stuff, but it just randomly is going silent on me, and I can't hear what you're saying on some of them.
Okay. Can our moderator look into that?
Yes,
your Wi-Fi connection.
This is the moderator. I've noticed, board member Ricardo Sanchez, you're connected through a headset on your computer. You consider connecting through the phone, perhaps at the next break. That might improve the performance. I've experienced an issue similar to what you just described before when connected through a headset, and that fixed it. And we'd be happy to walk you through that at the next break.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Albert Wong.
Maria Serpa.
Thank you. Shirley Kim.
Debbie Veal.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
Debbie Veal.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Debbie Veal.
Thank you. And Debbie Veal.
I will vote for myself. Thank you.
Okay. And I will vote for you. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Debbie Veal is our new and continuing vice president. Thank you. Now, election for treasurer. I nominate Maria Serpa. Okay. And would there be any other member comments? Let's move on. Ryan Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Cheryl Butler? Cheryl, remember to unmute.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you for some reason. I don't know why, but thank you. Ricardo Sanchez?
Yes.
Great. I heard you great this time. Albert Wong?
Yes.
Okay. Shirley Kim?
Yes.
Thank you. Jig Patel?
Yes.
Thank you. Sung Oh?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. Okay, Maria is our new and continuing treasurer. Thank you all. And let's see. Next will be agenda item 5. Members, agenda item 5 is an update from the Department of Consumer Affairs. In lieu of an in-person update, the DCA provided members with a written update. The written update was also posted on the board's website as part of the supplemental meeting materials. Members, are there any comments on the written update provided by DCA? Remember to open your line and identify yourself before speaking.
If you would like to make a comment, members of the public, you can do so by indicating inserting the phrase, I would like to make a comment in the question and answer box, which is open now. It should be somewhere around the lower right of your screen. Once you have entered in that you would like to make a comment, the moderator will unmute your microphone and we will call on you, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Board President, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment.
Okay. I'll move on to agenda item 6. Members, agenda item 6 provides us with the opportunity to consider if further amendment to the board's policy granting president discretion to waive provisions of pharmacy law pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 4062 is appropriate. As a reminder, during our March meeting, the board delegated the authority to the board president to extend previously granted waivers not considered by the board for up to 90 days. As noted in the meeting materials, in light of the ongoing health crisis, example 120 days, or until the next scheduled board meeting, whichever is later, unless extended by board action. 2, should the board consider delegating authority to the president to extend waivers previously approved by the board? If so, what is an appropriate time period, such as 120 days or 90 days, whatever, or through the duration of the declared disaster as deemed appropriate by the president? Members, before I ask for comments on the item, I'd like to remind you and the public of the approval process we've used thus far for waiver approvals. Board staff are both considering waiver requests from individuals as well as identifying waivers that will assist during this pandemic. Some requests are initially vague. In such instances, staff work with the requester to secure additional information about the request. Depending on the nature of the request, various staff review the proposal. Only after vetting by board staff is a waiver forwarded to me for consideration. Broad waiver requests are also reviewed by counsel prior to my review. As the president, I receive a recommendation from staff on a request along with a copy of the request. When necessary, I seek additional information from staff or I provide additional conditions. With that overview, members, please open your line if you would like to speak. When you speak, please identify yourself prior to making a comment.
Greg,
If anybody would like to comment, please speak.
Greg, this is Debbie Veal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would like to speak. I think it would be appropriate to extend the authority to the president. And I'm thinking, is it too complicated to say like 180 days or the duration of the declared disaster or until the next scheduled board meeting? I mean, having 3 items, and I don't know if maybe this is a question for legal and staff. You know, would it be possible to and say like whichever happens first? would that be a possible alternative? Because I think both until the next board meeting, I think that's a possible, I think that's a good idea, and I think also the duration of the disaster is a good idea, and these could all be different time periods. So,
right. Okay, Noreen, you want to chime in on that?
Well, I think as Ms. Veal points out, those could all be different time periods, which might get a little confusing as to when the waiver ends. I think.
So if I can interrupt you, Noreen, I don't know if you heard. I said it would be those three things, whichever occurs first.
Is there? I think there's something about the continuation. I think the one of the problems you get into that is that there is the authority to continue the waiver for up to 90 days following the termination of the declared emergency. So if the declared emergency is ended, I think you may have a conflict there.
Well, that wouldn't happen because it would be the earlier of. So the question is, if it was the earlier of, or you could put something in that it's good until ratified by the board, I mean.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, I agree with you, Greg. The earlier of 180 days, the duration or the end of the declared disaster has been deemed ended. I'm not sure what that is, or the next scheduled, or the next actual board meeting. It would be the end of those. So those would be three finite dates: 180 days, or when the declared disaster ends, or upon the next scheduled board meeting, at which point then we could review the waivers.
Right.
Well, I think what I'm saying is if the declared emergency ends, but the board would want to continue it for 90 days, you may have a conflict there. So I'm wondering if you really need to add in the end of the declared emergency, because you would want to looking at whether or not you're going to extend it pursuant to your authority. So I'm not sure you need to add that time period into the mix, as opposed to
great. I'll make a motion based on Noreen's comments. I understand where she's coming from.
So you want to go with 180 days or the board meeting, whichever is earlier?
Or the next scheduled board meeting, whichever is earlier. Although,
okay, that's your motion.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Okay.
President Lippy?
Yes.
For staff clarification, would Vice President Veal be agreeable to include some sort of time frame for the scheduled board meeting? As an example, if we had issued a waiver this week, as I understand the motion, we would need to bring it to this board meeting, but we would not be able to meet the public comment and agenda posting time frame to actually comply with the delegated authority granted to the president. So I guess at the staff level, would there be consideration to providing some sort of parameters within the context of the board meeting requirement? Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you suggest? Because I was trying to, because the scheduled board meeting, could be July 5th, and then we decide, well, we're going to schedule it, we're going to move the schedule. So, I'm open to, I appreciate that comment, and I would be open to suggested language on how we would address that. So the 180 days or the next scheduled board meeting, and then what would you attach to that?
I think I would probably deferred to council, but I think in concept, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. It could, maybe it's, unless the waiver's been for 30 days, at which time, it does not need to go to the next board meeting. I don't know, something along those lines.
Hey, this is Ryan Brooks. Why would we just say just extend it for 120 days period?
180 days?
Yeah, period.
This is Maria. I know you haven't had a second yet, but I'd like to jump into the discussion here. One of the things that Greg had mentioned was that the discretionary action was ratified by the board, and I just wanted to make sure that that was part of this, that the full board would ratify the president's decision. And then I'd like to discuss that 180 days. I think that's a bit long, that's 6 months, and going back to the discretion of 90 days.
Yeah, and Maria, this is Ryan Brooks. I'm okay with 90 days. I'm trying to just keep this simple. It sounds like we're confusing something that shouldn't be too confused. So I have a motion for 90 days that the president has the authority, period.
Yeah, this is Albert. I agree in 90 days should be sufficient.
Hi, this is Song. I also think that 180 days is a little too long for considering emergency. So 90 days probably is more appropriate.
I'm fine with 90 days. I just, I agree 180 may be too long. I think you need to consider that, once the emergency stops, there, we also need to allow people to kind of evolve back to normal from our new normal today. So
yeah, if there is a normal at this point.
I think 90 days is reasonable because actually, we should have a board meeting in May, so it's July. But we have a board meeting in about 60-ish days, so that gives us some time to kind of look at what's happening. So I'm fine with the comments that were made. So I'm fine if we just make it a set 90 days.
Okay, so I think I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion again. It's Ryan Brooks. Provide the president with waiver authority for 90 days.
Okay.
Do you
Debbie,
second
you want to second that?
I'll second that.
Albert won't second it.
Oh, okay. Albert second. Okay.
Or Debbie.
Yeah, either one. It's fine. Okay, so let's ask for public comment at this point.
I'm sorry, Greg, before you go to public comment, more
sure.
discussion on this specific
Go
motion.
ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, it probably doesn't need to be in writing here, but you do have the authority also, if we're concerned about this being too long, to end the waiver before 90 days if the disaster, let's say you give it 90 days and the disaster is ended 10 days later, you could go back and change the expiration date for that waiver. Isn't that correct?
Oh, yes.
So I think that gives us peace of mind about the quote unquote end of the declared disaster. If that
absolutely.
The board's needs.
Yeah,
I personally would go ahead. I mean, it's really just the authority.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that we don't have like a cliff here that that you would go back and the disaster ends after 10 days and you would go pull all the waivers, because I do think there's going to be a transition back to normal. So I agree with you, Maria, but I think we also have to all realize that just because the disaster ends doesn't mean you would be pulling all the waivers. That would be thoughtfully done.
It's a judgment call.
That's my point, is that Greg
some
may
of
change
them probably could be pulled immediately, others cannot.
Right. I would leave that up to the discretion of the president as to how to transition, but you're not locked for the full 90 days. He could say,
correct.
I'll give this one 45 days, and I'll give this one 10 days. I'd leave that to the president's discretion.
Yep. I have a question. This is Cheryl. I know that there's a consult with the staff. Is the vice president involved with that
No, but the inspectors are.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be the backup, Cheryl, if Greg, for some reason, is not available.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have to say that, Ann or Noreen? Or is that assumed? Or do we have to say it? If we extend the authority to the president?
I think that would depend on how your board administrative manual describes the duties of the president and vice president, but I suspect that
Well,
that's
so far, when the vice president becomes an acting president at the time, then they have all the powers of the president.
Does your manual, your policy say that the vice president becomes acting president upon the unavailability of the president?
Well, I don't know for sure. I assume that because that's what they did with me. When I was vice president and Victor left, I was immediately put in as acting president without any votes. So I had assumed that that's what the policy was.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but that's fairly typical.
Okay. Well, we can look into it. Okay.
Mr. President, this is board staff. I apologize for the interruption. Could I please get clarification on the motion? Is it to delegate authority for the president to issue a waiver for up to 90 days or extend a waiver for up to 90 days?
So the motion right now is for gives authority to the president to extend a waiver for up to 90 days.
Extend or initiate?
But does it also give authority to do an initial waiver for 90 days?
Yes, all amended to extend and grant waivers for no longer than 90 days.
Okay. And
so
Albert, is that agreeable to you for your second?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, Ann, do you understand the motion?
So this is Noreen. So as I understand it, it's to delegate the authority to the president to issue initial waivers for 90 days and then to extend waivers that the board has approved.
No, this would not be board approval because we're delegating the authority to the president to approve them.
So effectively what it does is it gives president authority for 180 days if they issue 90 days and then extend for 90 days. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, so we're saying if an initial waiver is about to expire, the board president has authority to re-up that waiver for up to an additional 90 days. The board president also has the authority to grant new waivers no longer than 90 days.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second, and if there are no other board comments, I'm going to open it up to public. Are there any other member comments? Okay, moderator, please open the lines for the public.
All right, we are opening the lines now for public comment. And we've displayed as a reminder on the screen now the method that will be utilized to express that you would like to make a comment. So the question and answer feature has been activated. You should see it in the bottom right of your screen. If you would like to make a comment, you can do so by typing in the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the box. And we do have a member of the public who would like to make a comment, an individual who's identified themselves as Christine Baruchel. So, Christine, I will be unmuting your microphone in 1 moment. Okay, Christine, I am unmuting your microphone. You'll have 2 minutes to make your comments.
Thank you very much. Hello, board members. I just wanted to make a comment about the dates that the waivers expire. Of all the waivers, the date of expiration is anywhere from June 24th through July 24th, and one is on July 4th, which is a holiday. And some of them actually delineate or have the written sentence in the waiver, the date, and then it says until the emergency declaration is lifted, whichever is sooner. So I was wondering if you, is there a reason that the dates on the waivers aren't aligned for simplicity's sake on the same date? And also, would you want to add that sentence after every waiver?
Ann, do you want to answer that?
So this is right. I think that's an administrative job or duty of the president to reconciliate. Is that correct?
Well, technically, yeah, but what happens is, you know, I work together with Ann on that. So
President Lippy, if you don't mind, this is for staff. So the difference in the dates reflects the time frame from the date of issuance. We do not issue all of the waivers at one time. And as such, that is why the expiration dates differ. During the last board meeting, the board voted on several of the waivers and included as that the time frame for which the waiver was good and where they deemed it appropriate indicated, or until the declared disaster has ended, whichever is sooner. So that is based on action taken by the board during the March meeting.
Does that answer your question?
This is the moderator. I muted the member of the public's microphone. I'll go ahead and unmute the member of the public's microphone and advise we still have about 1:15 left for her period of time to make comments. So, Christine, I'll go ahead and unmute your microphone now. You're unmuted.
No, the answer was sufficient. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, are there any other?
No one else? Nope, there's no other request to make a comment, Board President, so I'm going to close out the question and answer feature now.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 7.
I don't think there is. Are we on 7?
Don't we vote?
I think we voted on the call.
Okay, yeah, we do. After all the discussion, we now have to take a vote. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. President?
Yes.
For purposes of the minutes, would it be possible to please have the motion restated for the record? There was a couple of different ones. So just so there's clarity as to what's being voted on.
This is Ryan. Sure. The motion. I would like to give delegate authority for the president to grant new waivers no longer than 90 days, and to allow the president to extend waivers no longer than 90 days.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so we have the motion, we have the second, we've had public comment. Let's go ahead and vote.
Can I just, I'm sorry, this is Noreen, I just need one more clarification. I want to make sure that the motion is allowing the extension of the president's own waivers that he's issued to be extended. So is it the first 90 days and then if the board has asked for an additional 90 days?
That was the motion.
Okay. I just need that
Okay. Let's start with Maria Serpa.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Ryan Brooks?
Yes.
Debbie Veal?
Yes.
Cheryl Butler?
Yes.
Ricardo Sanchez?
Yes.
Albert Wong.
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley Kim. She may have stepped off. Jig Patel.
Yes.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Yes.
Thank you. And I am a yes. Okay, it carries. Now we can move on to item 7. Okay.
This is the moderator. This is the moderator, Board President. I apologize for the interruption. I just wanted to mention that I think Board Member Kim had stepped away, and I have reinstituted her as a panelist so that she can mute or unmute her mic if she would like. So I wanted to let you know that you may want to call on her one more time.
Okay. Well, Shirley, did you step off before hearing the comments, or did you step off after?
No, it was just briefly. So I heard all the comments, so I support.
Okay, so you feel able to vote then?
Yes.
And what is your vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll go on to agenda item 7. Okay, we'll now proceed with discussion and consideration of requests to waive pharmacy law provisions consistent with the Authority in Business and Profession Code 4062. As included on the agenda, the board will consider 3 site-specific waivers that, unless extended, will expire before the board's June 18, 2020 meeting. For purposes of our discussion today, it's my intention to review each waiver and provide members with an opportunity to provide comment. As part of board member comments, I'll entertain a motion to either extend or modify the waiver. If no action is taken on a waiver, it will expire on the established date. Having described the process I intend to use, I will now ask for questions from members. And I believe it's on your screen. Anyway, the first waiver, which is on your screen, is Stanford Health. On March 9th, 2020, a limited waiver was approved to allow Stanford Health to perform medium-risk compounding of an investigational drug in a non-compliant hazardous compounding environment. Stanford is enrolled in a study conducted by the National Institutes for Health to evaluate the potential treatment of the COVID-19 virus. Under the approved waiver, Stanford Health is granted limited authority to compound the investigational drug. Information received from the entity confirms that this waiver has been used in a very limited capacity, specifically for 2 doses. The facility indicates that equipment is on order, and it's anticipated that the equipment will be ready for inspection by the board in July. I will now ask staff to open the phone lines for members. Members, I'll take a roll call to see if you have any questions or comments. But first, before I do that, I think what I'm going to do is, if you have any comments, just speak up, because I don't know that there's going to be that many that I need to take a roll call. So, any comments, members?
This is Debbie. So can you clarify? So we approved the waiver on March 9th, but for how many days was that waiver approved for?
That waiver was approved for 30 days. I think it was 90. Ann, do you know?
I guess, Ann, when does that waiver expire?
I wonder if we lost her.
Look, this is Ann. I apologize. So the waiver is for 90 days. Supervising Inspector Acosta is available to answer any questions that you have. It is set to expire before the June board meeting, which is why it was included on the agenda today.
So this is Maria Serpa. I have several questions that I'm not sure if Ann or if Christine can answer. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
I understand the urgent nature of this request for waiver, and especially being an investigational drug, and the circumstances are very, very specific. But my concern was what we got in the board materials is very limited in information. So it states a non-compliant hazardous compounding environment. And to me, that is a huge red flag without additional information. So I wanted to get some more information about what makes it non-compliant, and is it a safety issue? My assumption is that our chief inspector and the board staff would make sure that this was as safe as possible. But I was wondering if someone could just let us know, what is this non-compliant hazardous environment that we approve?
And Maria, can I piggyback on that question? Because I believe, Greg, you said that it's for like 2 doses or 2 patients. And so how often are they having to compound this product? So in the waiver period, is this like 20 more times, or is this 2 more times? I'm not sure that really matters, but
I think we need to ask Christine that, and I believe that the environment was an issue over the personal protective equipment.
Yeah, so the specifics make a big
Christine, please.
difference. So I would like to get a little bit into the weeds on that.
Sure. Christine?
Hi, Board President. This is the moderator. Christine is logged in as an attendee, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute her microphone now so that she can respond to your questions. Christina Acosta, I'm going to unmute your microphone now.
Good morning, board members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So it is my understanding that this is an investigational. It's the ridomzavir. They were part of the study before last week. Their room is an SCA, not a hazardous SCA. The ridomzavir was deemed, quote, hazardous because it's an investigational drug, and we really don't know where it's going to lie when all the studies are completed. They are not doing it in externally vented, physically separate, no negative pressure. That's why that part of the waiver is in there. Okay. Well, it's my understanding. Yeah, so it's my understanding that
drug, that specific drug is a not your typical HD drug, so the risks are much less.
Correct. Thank you. Correct. That's why I mentioned the name of the drug, because now we all know what it is. So it's because it's investigational, they were treating it as a hazardous drug because that's what you do when you don't know. So they were garbing appropriately, but they didn't have the appropriate facility. They are getting a mobile compounding unit that should be there in July that will take care of this problem. It will have a hazardous and a non-hazardous side. Due to the COVID stuff, there's been slight delays in that process. From when I asked them, they had only done 2 doses. They didn't specify or stratify whether that was 1 patient or not. I was very surprised by it only being 2 doses, because that's not even a full treatment protocol from what I can tell from INH, but that's the information that I have. What other questions can I answer?
So I have a suggestion, and I have follow-up questions. The suggestion would be that in the written documentation, that a few of those details that talks about the risk mitigation would be helpful, because just having a little bit there, it could be an extremely hazardous situation, or it could be a low-risk situation, like you mentioned, low risk. The term investigation is helpful because it shows us the urgency of the request. But my follow-up questions are, what happens when this drug is available not as an investigational? Would this waiver only allow them for the investigational protocol and not the commercial product or the compassionate use product? So it's really limited, the waiver, to just investigational. So that's the first part of the question.
Well, it's my understanding of what the FDA and FEMA are doing with the ridomzavir. It's still considered an investigational drug at this point. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to get non-investigational status for a little while.
So that would be just a good discussion point, is that if at some point they get compassionate use drug, this waiver would not cover them.
Correct. I believe the actual verbiage in the waiver is for investigational drugs.
Right. And the second, or actually the third part, is very similar to what Debbie's question was, is Is Stanford requesting an extension of their waiver, or has their use of the drug ended that they don't need an extension?
They have asked for an extension to make sure that they can use it. And we're hoping by the end of July, they will have a compliant room where they would be able to do the investigational drug without a waiver being needed, or at the time it's not an investigational drug, we'll have to assess it.
Okay, thank you. Those were
And
my
then,
questions.
Maria, just so I understand your first statement, so the document we provide to you, you want more details. That what you're asking? Because I have that information as far as when President Lippy said we went back and forth. I got additional information until we understood what they were asking from us. But you just want us to provide you a little bit more.
I think for the record, it would be good to have a little bit more. I understand the level of expertise and the due diligence that that you and the board staff do with this. So my assumption everything was okay. I just wanted to know what it was. So it would be more listing as to what is this non-compliant hazardous environment? Because essentially by looking at that one sentence, you could say, well, I'm just making it in the break room. It doesn't really say anything. It didn't say that.
Maria,
so thank you.
I just want to make sure I understand what you want us to provide, because this is
I don't need a
brave
book,
new world.
but maybe a couple of bullet points, the common bullet points, so that we would assume also that people in the community reading this would be asking for waivers of a similar risk risk evaluation, that they're just not asking for, I don't have a chemo room, I want to make it on the counter. We want to avoid people misunderstanding that too, but mostly it was from my education. So I appreciate your time, Christine. I know you're an extreme expert in this area, so I trust that your evaluations are always good.
Yeah, and I would like to add on to what Maria, with your discussion here. I think we all would like to have this a little bit more information. So I think that'll make us more expedient in kind of going through these waivers. I'm hoping this is the last board meeting we're going to have this way, and that the waivers won't be necessary at our next board meeting. And I like to think blue sky, but that might not happen. So I think that would be helpful. And also, when does the current waiver end? So that we can understand, the sense of urgency and why it's necessary. And I don't know if it's appropriate, but because my next question is going to be, I am making the assumption, Christine, that because it's on here, you're recommending that we move forward and approve this waiver. But it might be helpful, if appropriate, to have your recommendation also.
Okay. I understand.
And if this is Board Member Veal speaking.
Okay. Do we have additional member comments? No? All right. Moderator, let's open up for public comments.
Okay, thank you, Board President. I've also muted Christina Costa's microphone as she's logged in as an attendant, so I wanted to mention that. We'll go ahead and open up the public comment period now. The question and answer box has been opened up. As you can see displayed on your screen, you can make a comment and make a verbal comment to the board by indicating, I would like to make a comment in the question and answer box. Then the moderator will call out your name and will unmute your microphone, and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comments to the board. I'll pause a few more moments to allow members of the public to indicate if they would like to make a comment or not. All right, no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment. I'll be closing out the question and answer now.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next waiver that's in your materials is PetNet.
Greg, I have a procedural thing. Are we going to vote on each one of these waivers, or are we going to vote on them as a package? It seems like we probably need to vote on each one, right?
Okay. All right. I was going to do it as a package, but that's okay. We'll do each one.
Well,
let's do it as a package.
That we don't like, but yeah, whatever. So if that's the way you want to do it, then we just need to keep notes which ones we want to, they're okay. All right. I'm
for clarity, because I think I would recommend that you do each one individually.
Okay. Well, we'll just do it as one. That's
I'll
fine.
make a motion that we approve an extension of the Stanford Health waiver through August 15th. That will enable them to get their new remote lab in and hope, operational. It kind of gives them a little bit extra time in case something happens.
So Debbie, this is Maria. I think that I would suggest that we change your motion to give them a little bit more flexibility, because not only do they have to get it in, they have to get it inspected by CDPH and the Board of Pharmacy, which could take them weeks to get the inspection done.
Okay, that's why I actually, Maria, extended it 2 weeks. So if you think it needs to, I haven't been.
So you want to make it 120 days?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe Christine could give us an example, but maybe we could authorize them to use the new equipment before they get fully evaluated by the board. That would be an option, but I'm not sure how legal that is. It's just that knowing that at this time,
that would be legal, because we're waiving them having the current situation, so that they absolutely can move in and use the new equipment, couldn't they? I mean, isn't that all part of the waiver?
Well, the other thing, whatever we set it for, I mean, we could extend it if need be.
So is Christine still on the line? What's reasonable for them to get the I can't remember what it's called, the remote,
Yeah, I think the moderator is going to have to open her line again.
Yeah, this is the moderator. I'll open up Christine's line. Christine, I'm unmuting you now. You're unmuted.
Hi, guys. So they're getting a mobile compounding trailer. So the trailer has to be vetted through the Department of Transportation, be delivered. Then OSHPD has to come in and say that it's seating right, so it's level, the electrical's right, the plumbing is right. Then the Board of Pharmacy goes in, and then CDPH goes in afterwards. So if it's delivered in July, I think 9/1 would probably be the soonest it would be up and running. And the other part of the conversation is I don't see that this waiver would allow them to use equipment that was not properly done through OSHPD, which we have no control over. We could possibly use a remote inspection to open it as the Board of Pharmacy, but CDPH is still looking at what we call opening inspection. So I don't foresee that they could use the equipment before it was properly vetted between the three agencies. So they would have to continue to use the waiver we're discussing now until at least 9/1.
So my suggestion is that we give them a lot of leeway because of the
I agree with you.
And so I would say,
I didn't write down, when did we say the expiration date of the current waiver is?
It's prior to the June meeting, so.
It expires on 6/9.
6/9?
June 9th.
7,
June
8,
9th.
9. So maybe we do 120 days. That would give them to the beginning of October.
Right, and if it's not enough, I can extend it at that point.
Okay, well, my motion is going to be for 120 days.
That's fine. Good.
Albert, were you the one, or Cheryl, did you second? Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Oh, I second.
Okay. So the motion is to.
Ray, can I ask one other thing? It looks like a lot of our waivers have to do with compounding, at least the next couple. So maybe the moderator can just leave Christine unmuted.
That's a good idea.
Time being, so we don't have to keep waiting to unmute her.
Right. We actually only have one more because one of them has been withdrawn.
Okay.
But I'll mention that. So, but leave Christine open for that.
Okay.
So we
this
should
is the moderator. I'll leave her line open.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead then with the vote. And the motion is to approve this for 120 days.
I don't know if you did public comment.
We asked for it, didn't we? We already had public comment. Nobody commented.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go. Huh? Are you ready for the vote?
Yes.
Okay. Debbie? Maria?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you. Albert?
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley?
Yes.
Thank you. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you. Sung?
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes. It carries. Now, the next one was in your materials was for PetNet, and they had a shortage of PPE, but they no longer have that problem, so it's been withdrawn. So we'll move on to the last waiver, which is from CapRx Inc. It's a waiver of Business Profession Code Section 4126.8 and Title 16 CCR Section 1735.1X. On March 12, 2020, a limited waiver was approved to allow for an alternative use of PPE by staff performing hazardous non-sterile compounding under the specified conditions detailed in the meeting materials. Approval of the waiver was granted in light of the limited supply of PPE. This was a situation where they were required to use 2 sets of PPE, and we allowed them to use 1 set of PPE. Do we have any member comments?
I'll jump right in. It's Maria.
Okay.
And again, it might be in the details, but it's not in the wording here. I have serious concerns about accommodating chemotherapy type of hazardous non-sterile compounding. The other hazardous non-sterile compounding is appropriate, but I believe that with chemotherapy hazardous compounding, that we should not waive some of the current regulations, and that would be the inclusion of using chemotherapy gloves.
Let's let Christine respond to that. Christine?
Correct. They don't do any Table 1. So everything they're doing is, it's mostly hormone therapy is what they're doing. And again, this is non-sterile. Let me look. I'm pulling their list as we speak. They did say they have a possibility of cutting or splitting things like a methotrexate or something of that regard, but actual compounding with API, I'm trying to get that specific list up for us because you guys are quicker than me today. It says we only compound a danzerdol, so an estrogen blocker is as close as they get to an antineoplastic. So they're not doing any chemotherapy.
Which is nice to hear, but I think the waiver should be very specific, and it should say non-chemotherapy hazardous, and not just say all hazardous.
That's a good addition.
It's a little bit tricky because our definition of hazardous deems only antineoplastic anything approved by the PIC. So that's it gets a little bit tricky when we write them. But I understand the clarity you're seeking. I get it.
So whatever words you want to include, I would also avoid using the table 1, 2, and 3 now because NIOSH the world is changing there. So I know that we can only speak to how the words are in our regulations and not how they are on the federal level. So whatever word you could put in there, Christine, to make it limited. I don't want this company or others to think that we're waiving all hazardous, but only those that are deemed low risk.
Right. Christine, do they use a PEC for here?
This is non-sterile, so I believe I'm looking to see what type of if they have or are using any type of containment device. It suggests that there's no requirement for it.
Okay.
All the requirements for containment device would be under USP 800, which is suggested practice but not required.
So, Christine, my question's going to be the same as last time. Is this one that you recommend?
difficult question, Member Beal. So I do understand that we are in a shortage of supply for PPE. I'm not 100% sure about the supply chain as far as it comes to anti-neoplastic or HD compounding garb. That's what I'm having a hard time justifying. At this point, this entity has told me they're using 4 different vendors trying to get the supply, because I did reach out to see whether it was necessary when one person, like you saw, a large company, the PetNet, withdrew saying, I have enough supply, and then I've got a smaller company saying I don't have enough supply. It's hard for me to sit in this position and say, well, I'm not going to give you a waiver to continue because you're telling me you can't get it, but if somebody else can get it, does it mean it's available? So do I recommend it? At this point, I would, because I can't say that they can get this from another vendor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and just to educate the rest of the board members is that up until a very short time ago, there were no PPE required for non-chemo hazardous drugs. So this is something that's new in the last year or so, except for the chemotherapy, which has always been required. And it makes things a little bit more confusing.
Right.
Are they saying what PPE products are, what PPE equipment that is not available? Is it the mask? Is it the gloves? What is it?
In this particular waiver, they're addressing modifying all PPE, in particular the chemotherapy gloves, which they were using 2 pairs of chemotherapy gloves, which is a standard in 800. When making something with active pharmaceutical ingredients, you use 2 pairs so you contaminate the outside one, you take them off, and you still have a pair of gloves to touch less contaminated surfaces. They went down to 1 chemo-rated glove. They were wearing N95, which is not really necessary or required. And then they were using 1 pair of shoe covers instead of 2. All these things, like Maria just stated, are required in our law if the PIC deems these non-chemotherapies to be hazardous, but they're not necessarily required in our law if the PIC deems these API not to be a hazardous drug.
Thank you.
So it's one of those very kind of gray enforcement areas.
Thank you for explaining that.
President Lippy?
Yes.
Based on the conversation, I'm wondering if the board would like to modify the conditions of the waiver to include an additional condition that the waiver not be extended to chemotherapy agents.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was a good addition when I heard it. We haven't had a motion yet, so whoever's making the motion, if they want to add that, that would be great. Is somebody going to make a motion?
This is Maria Serpa. I'll go ahead and make that motion with the amendment as stated by Ann.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
And this is Debbie. I'll second it.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other member comments?
President Lippy, I apologize again for the interruption. Is the desire of the board to just add an additional condition, or does it also intend to extend the waiver?
So since I made the motion, I think that, we could extend the waiver at the discretion of the president as to when he wants to withdraw the waiver, because the supply chain is filling up now. But smaller companies are at the bottom of the list. The big companies get the PPE first. The little guys have to wait a lot longer.
Sounds good. Debbie, does your second agree with that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and open up for public comment. Moderator, can you open the lines?
Yes, so we'll go ahead and open up for public comment. I also wanted to let Christina Costa know I've muted her microphone. So right now I am opening up the question and answer panel. So
why don't you leave Christine open in case she needs to respond?
Okay, I can do that. I will reactivate her microphone in a moment. Christine, I'm unmuting you just so you're aware. And I've also opened up the question and answer panel. So if we have members of the public who would like to make a comment to the board, you can do so by indicating I would like to make a comment and typing that into the question box. Once you've done that, I will unmute your microphone and call on you, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll pause just a few more moments to allow folks to indicate if they would like to make a comment or not. Okay, we've had no one indicate that they would like to make a comment. I'm going to go ahead and close out the question and answer box now. Should I also mute Christine's microphone at this time, Board President?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, time to vote on the motion. So I will call Ryan Brooks first.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler?
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Debbie?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Albert?
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley?
Yes.
Thank you. Sung?
Yes.
Thank you. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll vote yes. That carries. Okay.
Greg, excuse me, can we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, I was just going to call for a break. It's 10:30, and that's when I plan to do it. So, okay, let's all take a 10-minute break. So, moderators, shall everybody just mute?
Yes, so everyone, if you could put your, all board members and staff who are panelists, if you can put yourselves on mute. After a moment, if you're not on mute, I'll go ahead and mute you from the WebEx platform to ensure that we don't have any background noise going on. We'll also display a slide indicating that we are on break, so we'll get that up in a moment. I did have a quick question for board member Ricardo Sanchez. Is your connection working out better, or did you want us to troubleshoot you getting connected through a phone as well?
I guess that answers
it. Yeah, maybe he's left already.
Maybe he already took his break.
Yeah, we'll check in with him when he comes back, perhaps, or just before the break concludes. All right, I see the slide is up, so 10-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you. And,
okay. I've just received a notification from board staff. They're going to go ahead and call him now. So, are you good with that approach, Board President? Okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
And this is Ricardo back on.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We're now moving up to agenda item 8A, which is community pharmacy staffing. Members, we will now begin our discussion and consideration of comments received in response to proposed regulations. The first item for our review, consideration, and action is a proposed regulation to add Title 16, Section 1714.3, Community Pharmacy Staffing. At the July 2019 board meeting, the board approved proposed text to add Section 1714.3 of Title 16 CCR related to community pharmacy staffing. The proposal will establish the criteria a pharmacy must meet in compliance with Business Profession Code 4113.5 to identify and ensure a person is assigned to assist the pharmacist as needed when the pharmacist is working alone. I trust members have taken the opportunity to review the meeting materials, including the comments received during the public comment period, as well as staff's recommendation to each comment. With that understanding, I'll now open the discussion for members. Members, please remember to open your line and identify yourself prior to making your comments. On this one, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call each member asking if if you want to make a comment. Debbie Veal? Remember to unmute. Do you have a comment to make?
Yeah, I do. Look, and I was looking through the comments made that were received, and there seemed to be a couple that were received multiple times that
Yes.
the board staff, did not necessarily agree with. So, I tend to agree with them, just based on my experience in working in community pharmacy. Probably the two that are of concern to me is specifically naming a name on the schedule of who would be the replacement. Because sometimes things change and that position is filled by somebody different. So I think our goal here is to protect the pharmacist that's in the pharmacy. So I'm
Correct.
totally on board with that. However, I think being too prescriptive could also be, I don't agree with being over prescriptive, and so specifically having a name versus maybe a title, I think is what a couple of the people suggested. The other thing is, absolutely, I believe that we need to have a time limit when the people get back to the pharmacy. However, I think we need to be a little bit flexible because sometimes that individual might be someone who's like stocking shelves or whatever. And so, we call them back to the pharmacy. We need to make sure that we're also protecting the safety. And this is just, they might be out stocking shelves, which means they have stuff out there, one of those little roller things that you put your stock on, or boxes or whatever. They need to have time to put that stuff away and make the area where they were safe before they get back to the pharmacy. So I'm just afraid if we make a hard fast rule every single time it has to be 5 minutes, that is worrisome to me, because then I think we're trading good for bad. So I kind of like when we did the mail order, people being available, we did like an average, because sometimes they can, sometimes they're like checking and they can just kind of shut down maybe the cash register and run back to the pharmacy and then be there in a minute. And other times it might take them 6 or 7 minutes. So I think one of the comments said like an average of 10. Matter of fact, I think that came up more than once. So I thought that was reasonable also. So those are the two things. This is very important. We do need to make sure it happens in the pharmacy. I'm not trying to sidestep it. I'm trying to make it more of a workable situation. There has to be a little give and take. I want it to be workable, and yet I want to protect the pharmacist in the pharmacy. So those would be the two things that I think that we should consider modifying in the language. And I know we talked about this before when we decided to push it through. And at this point is when we were supposed to deal with these issues. So here we are. I think we need to deal with them. And probably that means that we're probably going to go into another comment period. But that would be my recommendation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, Maria, do you have a comment?
Yes, my comments are very similar to Debbie's. So just for brevity, I agree with her two areas of concern. The first area of concern is about naming people, and looking at the public comments that we received in writing, I would suggest using a little bit more prescriptive language than what they had suggested, and say staffed position. That's to assure that the position or shift is staffed. It's not something that someone calls in sick and goes empty, or that you call off if there's not enough work. They send people home early. That's not one of the shifts that go home early. So that would be my first suggestion. That would be a staffed position. And then on the time, I have no additional comments except for what Debbie said. So I agree wholeheartedly with her of having an average and a little more achievable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, do you have a comment?
No comments here.
Okay. Cheryl, do you have a comment? Cheryl?
Yes, I do. I do have a comment. I do believe that it is important that there's someone, based on what I just heard both Debbie and Maria say, on the first one to name a replacement, I actually agree with what the board staff had to say about that, because I think it's very important to know who's going to come back there for the pharmacist to know, and not just a title. I think they need to know that if there's a list of 2 or 3 people, they know who could possibly be the person to come back there that has gone through and have the training that's necessary to be back there, and not just anybody with any title. I do know that in order to be back there, that they have to pass, there's certain things that have to be done. But I think it's important that the pharmacists, because the main thing is that all pharmacists this has not been enforced, and the pharmacists have not been getting any help at all. And so I think it's very important that they have some idea as to who's going to be coming back there, not just a title. So
if they, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I agree with what the staff had to say in that on that particular recommendation. And
so if they were to give a list of several names as opposed to a name,
the pharmacists have some idea of who's coming back there to help them. Yes, I think it's very important who's coming back there. And I totally agree with how what the staff's recommendation is on that, that a designated person be available to assist at all times, requiring the pharmacist and patient. And I mean, as far as the time, I mean, I think I agree with the staff on that, but then at the same time, if it ends up being 10 minutes, I wouldn't have a problem with that. At least there should be a designated time, because otherwise the pharmacists have patients standing in a line just waiting. So, I mean, 5 minutes, if I would be in agreement with the 10 minutes, but I think the pharmacists need to have some idea who's coming back there.
Thank you.
Hey, Cheryl, can I ask you a question? Would you be okay if it was like an average of 10 minutes? I think that's what we ended up with, that mail order and them responding. We did an average of.
I would not have.
Yeah, because people who can get back there fast get back there, but if it takes them a little bit longer, like maybe 12 for the next. I mean, so an average. Is that? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think between 5 and 10 minutes is fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Other than that, the staff did a good job, and if we are able to enforce what the staff recommendations are, that would be, there are some things that I wish it was a little bit different, but at least what staff came up with is something that would really help the pharmacists. Personally, I feel like pharmacists should have somebody back there at all times. If it's one pharmacist with all the responsibilities that pharmacists have at this time, I think they should have somebody back there at all times, and that it should be someone that is okay. I mean, if it was the way I wish it could be, it would be a tech, but I can understand just as long as someone is back there that can be of some assistance, so that the pharmacist, which can do the job that they're there to do, and be able to take care of the patients of California and stay in a safe environment.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, Ricardo, do you have a comment?
No comment.
Okay, Albert, do you have a comment?
No comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Shirley, do you have a comment?
Yes.
Shirley, are you here?
Yes, I am. I think in general, I think In the midst of this pandemic, pharmacists are playing an even greater role in providing healthcare services and ensuring public safety in our communities. So I think that there is an urgent need to promulgate the proposed regulation and ensure that pharmacists have adequate support to provide these services. With respect to the position comment specifically, I'd echo Cheryl's comments. And also, I found that the board's recommendation compelling, as the individuals who would be supporting a pharmacist should have the minimum competencies and background checks completed to fulfill the needs. And also, with respect to the 5-minute time period, I think that that's consistent with the legislative intent of SB 1442, as indicated by the author's comment that the regulations are faithful interpretation of both the letter and the spirit of the statute. So I'd support the regulation as currently drafted.
Okay, thank you, Shirley. Sung, do you have a comment?
Hi, I do. So first of all, about the Debbie and Maria's comments about naming positions. So here's my biggest concern in that if you think about it, if you name a position and designate that position, the concern is imagine a scenario where there is a new person hired for that position. And if you can designate a position of someone who may not have gone through any real thorough background check or any training or any real experiences of what it takes to work in a pharmacy, which it's not a simple task, would be called upon, and that would cause actually a severe confusion. There would be a security concern of someone that you don't really know coming into the pharmacy. So I think there has to be designating a person who is somewhat trained. There has to be somewhat of designated trainings given to this person beforehand. So I think that is really important for us to consider the security concerns if you designate a position. Secondly, for the time, 5 minutes is because how important it is to request assistance immediately. When we try to put language like average, I'm afraid that's going to cause a lot of confusion and kind of a lot of burden on record keeping on pharmacists on how all these were handled. And I think that just rather adds more confusion, and I think it needs to be pretty concise. And obviously, I think the intent of this legislation, as Shirley mentioned, it is really to assist in the needs arise. As all of you know, many knows, the pharmacy workflow, it's usually very up and down sometimes. And when the needs arise, it is usually very immediate. And I think that there could be some mitigation strategies on Debbie's examples of maybe someone who's designated to stock shelves. I mean, maybe there could be two people designated so that at least there's some backup plans. And so I think it is really important for us to consider what the intent of this legislation and how we could fully support it. And I think that what the board staff recommends are very concise to that. And so I highly recommend and hope to put a motion to adopt board staff comments.
Thank you. Jig, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you, President Lippy. I do agree with Debbie about the time it can take, and average seems to be reasonable given any store there are peak hours, and the person assigned could be in the middle of something that might take a little bit longer than, for example, at 5 o'clock in the evening when it's rush hour compared to 10 o'clock in the morning when it's not. Having number of people cross-trained to work in pharmacy when help is needed should be sufficient rather than having a particular name on the schedule. Also, this was passed for consumers who are looking for timely help and not have to wait, and for our pharmacists to safely practice. During this time of COVID-19 pandemic, our pharmacies out there, all the retailers, there were many sick calls. There were family members that were sick, and many people could not come to work. I wanted to ask the staff how many consumer complaints we got because they did not get their medications on time or any of that. That should be assessed just to get the gravity of the issue at hand.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we've had a number of comments. Does anybody wish to have a dialogue with each other?
I'd like to just make a couple kind of follow-up things. I think my suggestion, actually, I kind of actually like Maria's suggestion of, how you would, identify the person. But there was a couple comments of, if you did that, then the person wouldn't be trained. But actually in this regulation, it says whoever comes back does have to have that screening, the training, and all that. So we're, at least, and Maria's on the same page as I am, we're not suggesting by putting kind of a more not specific name on there, we're not suggesting that you would end up in a situation where whoever would come back would not meet the requirements of this regulation. They still would have to meet the requirements of this regulation. So we're not sidestepping that at all. We're just trying to provide flexibility, to the store at that point when, when this crisis is happening. I think, Jig said it exactly. It's going to happen. It's going to happen one of two times, either when they're super busy and someone has to step out of the pharmacy, or when it's not real busy. And when it's not real busy, you don't have, a whole bunch of people to choose from. So that's the retailers. They're going to have to figure out, who do I have to train? And maybe it's going to be a lot of people out there so they can pick the right person. The other thing I want to point out is there's a comment that, this hasn't been enforced, but it's a fairly new law regulation, and is the board's normal approach to new regulations, new statutes, is we usually go through a transition period and allow the stakeholders to adapt to the new regulation. So and maybe, Ann, you can speak to this, but I'm not sure that we told, our communication to the stakeholders was, as of this day, you have to be, 100%. I think we approach this like we approach pretty much every statute and every regulation we've ever put in place, where we have a transition period, and let's kind of get up to speed. So I also don't want to go too drastic, because we haven't given everybody a chance to get people trained, to get everything into place. I sense that there's a lot of goodwill out there by most of the stakeholders, and the bad guys, we're going to catch them. But the ones who are trying to get up to speed, I don't want to overreact just yet. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
My feelings about that is, the law was passed January 2018, and from my observation, I haven't seen any. I mean, based on what data I've seen, I haven't seen any enforcement, or I haven't. In other words, I see a lot of pharmacists working alone without any help. So I mean, this is 2020. This was 2018 that this law was passed. January 2018.
Thank you, Cheryl.
So, Greg,
and when did we actually put the regulation into play?
So, if I remember correctly, the statute took effect January of 2019. In July of last year, the board, I believe, approved the regulation for notice. And so we've had the general policy of the board in a draft since, I believe, July. And so I think that each investigation, irrespective of the type of investigation, are evaluated on a case-by-case basis unless there are specific rules in play. And so should we be receiving investigations for violations of the underlying statute right now, staff would be assessing on a case-by-case basis to determine whether or not the employer is fulfilling the obligations of the statute.
You know, Anne, how many investigations do we currently have open where we've identified this as an issue?
I do not have that data with me.
Do you think it's I know you might not have the exact number, but in your opinion, has it been egregious by the employers that no one's paying attention to this? Or do we have, like I said, there's going to be some bad players that and we're going to have to go after them, and we're going to have to, punish them. But in general, are we finding this, egregiously being ignored?
You know what? I think that right now, I don't think we need to get into a big discussion of that. I think what's important here is that we move on and put something on the books that can definitely be enforced. So I'm with you, Debbie, and that, and that I'm just happy that we're headed somewhere where we can actually say this needs to be done and that needs to be done, and that when inspections are taking place, this is being checked. Okay, so I don't think we need to spend any more time on that.
This is Maria. I just have one point
Okay,
to the board, and that is keeping in mind that we want our regulations to be specific enough to give specific information to the licensees so that they know what is required and demanded of them by the inspectors and by their staff, but also make it something that is easy to monitor and to implement from the licensee's point of view and also from the inspector's point of view. So I think that's the important part on the timing, because I don't want to get down to people having stopwatches and it's 5 minutes and 10 seconds and they call and make a board complaint, or that we have board inspectors out there using stopwatches either. And that's one of my concerns about having a hard and fast number versus a range or something like that. And I leave that up, the first part on the names or the people, more up to the general board's desire. But on number 4, I just have concerns about it being a very specific line in the sand.
Okay, so do we have somebody that wants to make a motion?
I make a motion that we proceed with the staff recommendation.
I second.
Okay. So we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any more? Are there any more comments by board members?
President Lippy, I apologize for the interruption. To clarify, Member Butler, is your motion that you agree with the staff recommendations and that you are voting to adopt regulatory language as noticed and delegate to the executive officer the authority to make technical or non-substantive changes as may be required by control agencies?
Thank you, Anne. That's exactly what I'm recommending.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. All right. Moderator, let's open up for public comment.
Okay, Board President, we will now activate the question and answer feature, and we'll display a slide as well so the public knows how they can utilize that feature. I believe the slide is getting in the process of being displayed now. Folks should see the question and answer box appear in the upper or the bottom right. Yes, the slide appears now. Perfect. Folks who want to make a comment on this can do so by typing in the box that I would like to make a comment, and the individuals would then be called upon and their microphone would be unmuted, and then they'll have 2 minutes to speak. We do have a couple of folks who've indicated that they would like to make a comment on this, so I will be unmuting the microphones in just a moment. All right. A member of the public that has identified themselves as Jassy Grewal, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment so that you can address the board. Jassy Grewal, your microphone is unmuted. You'll have 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Hi, my name is Jazzy Graywall. I am a legislative advocate with UFCW Western States Council. I just want to thank the staff for their recommendations and their hard work in putting forward this regulatory package. We would also like to support the motion that is currently on the table to push forward the regulatory package as the staff has put it forward with no changes. I just want to respond to 2 of the comments that have been raised. One along the lines of designating a specific person for the pharmacist to be able to call, and 2, the 5-minute time limit. It is imperative that we have an individual designated for the pharmacist to call. If there is not a person designated, there's a delay in patient care and patient response times. The pharmacist is calling for assistance because they need the assistance. They need to be able to have the help to be able to respond to the patients that are at the counter and with the task that they have at hand. And by having someone designated, that reduces the delay and having the pharmacist putting the onus on the pharmacist to have to respond and try to figure out who's available, who can come assist, which is just delay in patient care. So by having someone who's designated, it alleviates the security concerns. It has someone who has a background check, and then also is an immediate response for the pharmacist to know this is who I'm responsible for calling, and eases the delay in the patient care. As for the 5 minutes, we completely support the staff's recommendation of 5 minutes. The word average has been thrown around. How do we define that? How do we track that? How do we monitor what an average time frame is? So it's very important that we stick with the 5 minutes, because the pharmacist, as I stated before, is needing the assistance. There is a patient at the counter. We need to make sure that patient gets immediate access and care on behalf of the pharmacist. This law was adopted, signed into law October of 2018, went into effect January 1st of 2019. If employers are complying with this law, then they should have no concerns around these regulations being adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment. We have at this time 2 more individuals who've indicated they'd like to make a comment. The next person whose microphone I will be unmuting has identified themselves as Jennifer Snyder. Jennifer, I will be unmuting your microphone now. You're unmuted.
Hi, can everybody hear me? This is Jennifer Snyder.
Yes. We can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. So I'm talking today on behalf of the California Retailers Association and the National Association of Chain Drug Stores. We appreciate the dialogue that's happened within the board today, and do support the board providing direction to pharmacies as to the requirements of BMP Code Section 4113.5. But we do have concerns with the motion that's before the board right now, and specifically very much associated with 2 particular items. The first, and I think the most important, is the within 5-minute requirement. We feel that it doesn't take into account emergencies, employee breaks, or other unexpected staffing issues. The specified 5-minute requirement is very restrictive for pharmacies. We don't dispute the goal that pharmacies should have an employee available to respond as soon as practically possible, but there are circumstances that are out of the control of the pharmacy, and that employees will need certain circumstances where they need to safely complete a current task. Within 5 minutes is in most cases probably impractical, and a pharmacy probably won't be able to meet that requirement. We've suggested a more equitable and a more workable solution there is an average of 10 minutes instead of a specified specific within 5-minute requirement. With respect to designating particular persons or a specific name of a person, that's also we consider would be overly restrictive. I think the concern here is that you might have changes within that particular
15
day
seconds.
Of that particular staff person, and so designating a position for that period of time that's adequately trained, we think would be a better approach. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a comment. This individual has identified themselves as Mark Johnston. Mark, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. Okay, Mark, I'm unmuting your microphone now. Mark, you're unmuted. Hi, Mark. We can't hear you. I've muted Mark. I'll return to him before we end the public comment section, as we've got a couple other folks who would like to make a comment. I will now move on to Lori Walmsley. Lori, I'll be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. Lori, you are unmuted.
Hi, Lori Walmsley on behalf of Walgreens. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. I appreciate the discussion that has continued on since the July meeting. I appreciate the board staff responding to the comments. I echo the concerns of CRA and NACDS. Most specifically, I feel like the average of 5 minutes is something, the time of 5 minutes is something that needs to be considered. Our biggest concern is in locations that are open 24 hours, where there might be limited staffing on the front end of the stores due to low volume of staffing, that there might be situations where the assistant manager or somebody like that is assisting with an emergency with another customer, or is having to get something out of a stockroom, etc., where there could be concerns that they wouldn't be able to help within that time frame. So that's our biggest concern, is the flexibility and being able to allow an average time frame is to be able to account for some of those situations. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's indicated that they would like to make a public comment, and then we'll circle back to the individual who didn't respond the first time that they were called on. So next I will call on Rob Geddes. Rob, I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. Rob, your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you very much. This is Rob Geddes with Albertsons Companies. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So similar to Jennifer Snyder with CRA and NACDS, and also Lori Walmsley with Walgreens, I'd like to thank the board for the discussion that's taken place. Not belabor the point any further, but the time limit is the one that we would like to comment on further. We do agree with comments made by Debbie Villey and Maria Serpa that the average would make this much more operational. And I want to also point out that when you're speaking about 5 minutes versus 10 minutes, it doesn't necessarily present a patient safety concern where the patient would need to wait a little longer. It is more of a customer service concern. And by having a restrictive 5 minutes would replace one customer service issue with another potential customer service issue on the front end of the store. If somebody were forced to terminate a conversation or a transaction with a customer before that was safely able to be done. So we strongly oppose the current motion that is on the table and ask that that Maria Serpa and Debbie Villey's comments in favor of an average would be taken into consideration further by the board. And thank you for your time at this moment.
Thank you.
All right. We will then check in again with the member of the public who did not respond the first time they were called on. So, Mark Johnston, I'm going to unmute your microphone again, and you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. Mark, your microphone is unmuted. Mark, are you there? Mark? Okay, I've muted his microphone again as he was not responding to that board president. So that concludes all of the public comment for the current agenda item. So I'm going to close out the question and answer session now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, before we vote, Cheryl was on the motion. Did you want to alter it at all, or do you want to keep it the way it is?
I want to keep it the way it is.
Okay. And who's our second?
I second. This is Song.
So, okay, good. Okay, then in that case, we are up to the vote. So.
Freaking out. I'm 3 miles and the other. He's like, I'm not moving. So I've had all these tests. His mindset.
I can't hear what's being said. Is somebody who's speaking?
Like, well, they like that here.
Moderator, do you know who's speaking?
I've muted the microphones of anyone that it looked like had audio coming through their line, so I think I've addressed it now.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's take the vote. Debbie Veal.
No.
Okay. Maria?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler?
Yeah.
Oh, I know you're yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Ricardo?
Yes.
Albert? Albert? Remember to mute? Unmute, I mean. Are you there? I'll come back. Shirley?
Yes.
Shirley?
Yes.
Maybe she stepped off. Jig?
No.
Hello?
Brett?
No. Okay. Yeah.
I voted yes. This is Shirley.
Yes. Shirley. Thank you, Shirley. Okay. Sung?
I vote yes.
Okay. Albert, are you back? No. Okay. The motion passes.
Board President, I saw that Albert Wong was muting and unmuting his microphone, so I think he may have just gotten a little confused as to whether he was muted or not. I might suggest that now he's unmuted. Albert, are you there? I see he's unmuting and remuting. So, Albert, I'm going to unmute your microphone now as the moderator, and please go ahead and provide your vote. I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I voted no because for consumer protection and safety, if there's a need for help from the pharmacist, they should hire more staff to help the pharmacist instead of using the non-professionals.
Okay. Thank you. The motion passes. So,
Mr. President, I apologize.
Yes.
For purposes of the record, please, could you please indicate your vote?
My vote is yes. Okay. Next item. Item 8B. Substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria. Members, the next item for our review, consideration, and action is a proposed regulation to amend Title 16, Sections 1769 and 1770 related to a substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria. During the May 2019 board meeting, the board approved proposed text to amend sections 1769 and 1770 of Title 16 CCR related to the substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria. This proposal will increase transparency and clarity to applicants with respect to rehabilitation criteria the board considers when evaluating an individual's eligibility for licensure. The regulations are necessary to implement the provisions of AB 2138, Chapter 995 Statutes of 2018. Subsequent to the release of the meeting materials, DCA Council provided suggested changes to incorporate changes offered by the OAL for other program regulations in the area. The specifics of the changes are detailed in the revised memo. I note that all the changes recommended are non-substantive, and with this understanding that members have had the opportunity to review the meeting materials, including the comments received, recommendations of council, and staff recommendations, I will now open the discussion for members. I am not going to do a roll call unless it appears necessary. So any of the members wishing to speak, please speak up. Anybody going to speak or want to speak? No? Okay.
I will make a motion.
Please go ahead.
So when I clicked to unmute, I moved my motion. I would make the motion to adopt the regulatory language as noticed on March 13th, 2020, and delegate to the executive officer the authority to make technical or non-substantive changes as may be required by control agencies to complete the rulemaking file.
Great. That was a very thorough motion. Thank you. Do I hear a second?
A second. Cheryl Butler, a second.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, now it's time to open for public comment. Moderator, please open the lines.
Thank you, Board President. This is the moderator. We'll go ahead and open up the question and answer panel for public feedback on this agenda item. So you can see from the slide being presented now how to indicate you would like to make a comment. You simply type, "I would like to make a comment" in the question and answer box, and then we will call upon you and your mic will be unmuted and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comments. I'll now pause for a few more moments for folks to indicate if they would like to make a comment or not. Okay, we don't have anyone indicating they would like to make a comment on this agenda item.
Okay, then that being said, being that we have a motion and a second, I'll go ahead and take a vote. Starting with Sung.
Yes.
Okay. Jig.
Yes.
Thank you. Albert. Albert, are you unmuted? Okay, I'll skip for the moment. Shirley?
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes.
Thank you. And Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, my vote is yes. Albert, have you come back? Are you able to unmute? Okay,
This is the moderator.
motion passes.
Yeah, I can unmute him now to have his vote for the record, Board President. I'll unmute his microphone now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Albert.
My vote is yes. I unmuted.
Okay.
I don't know why you guys does not go through. My vote is yes.
This is the moderator. I noticed that your microphone muted from, or moved from unmute to mute pretty quickly back and forth. So sometimes after you select it, it might just take a moment's delay, Board Member Wong. So next time try that, and if not, I can help out again.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to move on to agenda item 8C. Okay. Members, next item for review and consideration and action is proposed regulation to amend Title 16, Section 1702, 1702.1, 1702.2, and 1702.5 related to renewal requirements. At the May 2018 board meeting, the board approved proposed text to amend sections 1702, 1702.1, 1702.2, and 1702.5 of Title 16 CCR related to renewal requirements. This proposal updates the renewal requirement language to include all licensing programs and amends the language in a manner that will ensure that the regulatory text applies to new licensing programs as they are established, streamlining the implementation process. As indicated in the meeting materials, no comments were received during the comment period. I will now open the discussion for members. As no comments were received, I will also entertain a motion. Members, please remember to open your line and identify yourself prior to making your comments. So anybody wishing to speak, please speak. Or if somebody's ready to make a motion, please do that. Sure.
How about we adopt the regulatory language as noticed on February 7th, 2020, and delegate to the executive officer the authority to make technical and non-substantive changes as may be required by control agencies to complete the rulemaking file.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, I'll second it. Now, any additional comments by board members? Okay, moderator, let's open for public comment.
Okay, I will now activate the question and answer box for members of the public to be able to make public comments. It's open now. Members of the public who would like to make a comment can indicate they would like to do so by typing, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. The moderator will then unmute their microphone and call on them so that they can make their comments to the board. They'll then have 2 minutes to address the board with their comment. I'll pause a few more moments as no one has indicated yet that they would like to make a comment on this item. Okay, I will go ahead and close out the public comment period now.
Okay, no comments being received. We have a motion, we have a second, so let's take our votes. Let's begin with Ricardo Sanchez. Ricardo? How do you vote?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
What's your vote?
My vote was yes.
Okay, when you said, "Can you hear me?" that's the first time I heard you. So I didn't hear the yes.
No problem. It just, like, it's going in and out, but okay.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, Albert? Albert? Maybe it's a time delay again. Shirley?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. Sung?
Yes.
Thank you. Debbie?
Yes.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Albert?
Hey, this is the moderator. I thought Albert's line was open, but I think he just muted himself. So I'll unmute your line now, Albert. Albert,
Yeah.
you should be able to.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And my vote is yes. Motion passes. Okay. Next is item 8D, offsite storage. Members, the next item for our review, consideration, and action is the proposed regulation to amend Title 16, Section 1707, related to offsite storage. As included in the revised meeting materials related to this regulation, during the January 2017 board meeting, the board approved proposed text to amend Section 1707 of Title 16 CCR related to offsite storage of records. The proposal amends the board's regulations regarding the waiver requirements for offsite storage of records to allow board discretion to grant those cited for a records violation to receive a waiver to store records off-site. One comment was received during the comment period and is attached following the memo. It appeared to be a question regarding clarification of the regulation. As noted in the revised memo, board staff recommends the comment be rejected. Board staff notes that the off-site storage requirements apply to non-resident pharmacies pursuant to Presidential Decision number 2019-01 in the matter of citation against ESI Mail Pharmacy, Inc., DBA Express Scripts. I will now open the discussion for members and will also entertain a motion. So, any comments by members? Okay, do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. Why not?
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to approve the staff modified language dated April 27th, 2020, and initiate a 15-day public comment period. Additionally, should no negative comments be received, delegate to the executive officer the authority to make technical or non-substantive changes as may be required by the control agency to complete the rulemaking file.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Ricardo.
Thank you, Ricardo. Okay. Do we have any additional member comments? Okay, let's, moderator, open up for public.
All right, we are opening up the public comment option now. So as you see displayed on your screen, if you'd like to make a comment, what you can do is indicate you would like to do so by typing, I would like to make a comment in the question and answer box. You will then be called upon in order to provide your comment to the board, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board once your microphone has been unmuted. I'll pause a few more moments as we have not yet had anyone indicate they would like to make a comment.
Thank you.
Okay, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment.
Okay, so you're going to close up?
Yep, it's closed out now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, it's time to vote. So let's begin. Albert?
Mr. President, this is your counsel. I was just wanting to make one clarification with respect to the motion that the motion is to approve the modified text, but to reject the comment as offered by staff recommendation.
Correct. Okay. Okay. Albert? Shirley?
Yes.
Thank you. Jig?
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo?
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yes.
Thank you. Sung?
Yes.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll go back to Albert. Is he unmuted?
He was unmuted, but I think he just muted himself. Albert, do you want to try to unmute yourself again?
Yes.
You're unmuted now.
Thank you, Albert. Okay, Debbie?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, motion, I vote yes and the motion passes. Okay, now we're on to item 9.
Mr. President,
Yes.
with your approval, we would like to go back and clarify the motion for the regulation related to substantial relationship.
Okay.
Specifically, if the board could clarify that it is rejecting the comments that were received, as well as accepting the non-substantive changes that were reviewed, displayed on the computer, and detailed in the memo that were offered by the control agency.
Okay. Debbie, was that your motion?
Yes, I will accept, if that's a friendly amendment, 'cause I don't think I mentioned, talking about, I did not address the comment. So yes, I will accept those, that change is friendly. And I think Cheryl was my second on this one.
Cheryl, do you agree?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Ann, and Noreen. Okay. Next is agenda item 9. Now, in 15 minutes, I'm going to break for lunch, to take a half hour for lunch. So just wanted to let everybody know in advance. Agenda item 9. Members, the next item for discussion is the review of the board's strategic plan. As indicated in the meeting materials during its October 26 to 27, 2016 meeting, the board approved its current strategic plan. Historically, the board has conducted an annual review of its plan. The strategic plan is intended to be a living document to be updated to reflect changes in board priorities that may result from changes in the marketplace, legislation, or certain situations like we're in now. Strategic plans are typically a 5-year plan. It is anticipated that next year the board will engage in the strategic planning process. Provided in the meeting materials are status updates to the strategic goal areas. To facilitate the discussion, I will ask each of the committee chairpersons to review their respective committees, as well as highlight any potential changes or priorities for the coming year. I will now turn the floor over to Vice President Debbie Veal, who is chair of the licensing committee. Debbie, it's your turn.
Okay, got it. So I'm talking about the licensing committee goals.
Right.
So regarding our first goal, we have discussed business modernization activities, which will ultimately lead to a better applicant, licensee, and consumer engagement. We need to transition to a more robust paperless process, which I believe will be a significant outcome of business modernization. So we will continue with that goal. Goal 1.2 reflects our commitment to complete a comprehensive review of at least 5 licensure categories and to update the requirements as appropriate. As you will note, we have, in the meeting materials, we have made very good progress. I'm interested in hearing from other members of the board if there's any preference to the next licensing program we're to evaluate. If not, then we'll take it back to the committee to select our next programs. But I just kind of want to throw it open to the other board members who don't have the pleasure of sitting on our committee, if there is any licensure category that you would like for us to focus in on as we do our review.
Okay, does anybody have comments? Okay, not
just
hearing
FYI,
any.
we're working on,
Oh.
technician is probably the most active one right now. But if there are no others, then we'll continue with that. And if at some point in the future there is one that comes to mind, please let us know. Because we would be happy to address others.
Thank you,
goal
Debbie.
Goal 1.3 speaks to improving the application process, including providing guidance to the applicant. I believe we need to work on this a little bit better. I know we, again, would be interested in hearing from members and feedback from the public as we set our agenda for the upcoming year. I think it might be helpful to designate which application process we want to focus on, so maybe do a little prioritization. And note that in prior committee meetings, we have discussed the high deficiency rate for the pharmacy applications, and staff has offered to provide a presentation on the application process. So specifically around the pharmacy application, we are razor focused, and that is on our agenda to continue to review. But if there's any other application process that you think we should be prioritize along with the pharmacies, please let us know. And once again, the committee will look at others and we'll take comments after this date. But if there's any today, we'd love to hear them. Are there
any special issues related to the applications on the APPs?
I don't think APPs we've had issues. I think sometimes, like with technicians, we do. Pharmacy by far is the biggest one. I think technicians, sometimes there's like a misunderstanding, as we all know. During disciplinary petitions, a lot of times there's a misunderstanding with some of the questions being asked. So we are, and that tends to be more the technicians, but also pharmacists. So we're looking at that. But I think APP, and Ann can probably speak better than I. So I don't know, Ann, if you want to answer the APP question.
Yeah. So with respect to the APH applications, I think the biggest challenge was the criteria, the pathways to licensure. And as you know, the board will be pursuing legislation to clarify what the requirements are and remove that double dipping criteria issue. So I believe that once that's remedied, challenges with the applications will be resolved.
Thank you.
Hello, Greg. This is Cheryl Butler, and I just have a question for Ann in that in the application processing times for pharmacy tech, based on what I see here, it says like 23. Is that like 23 days turnaround?
So the processing times will reflect from the date we received the application to the date that we processed it. So it will not, that does not include the time frame for issuance, because if something's deficient, then there'll be additional time. But from the time we receive it till the time that we initially process it, it's 23 days.
Okay. I just wanted, because I know I've had a couple of texts tell me that it's taken them a while, but in other words, there could possibly be a problem with their applications then.
And so I think there's a committee the text, like I mentioned earlier, I think that's another one that we need to probably focus in on, because it seems like that is one of the groups that has that stumbles in the application process, and perhaps there's something we can do to make it easier. Eventually when we get electronic, that'll be beautiful, because then as they go through and they ask questions, either they need it or they don't. So I think that'll help. But I do think the technicians is another one. So let's make sure we keep, we put that on our agenda and review it.
Right.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, Greg. Goal 1.4 calls for the committee to establish requirements to form a licensing process for alternative work sites and vendors in the marketplace. In the upcoming year, I recommend that we focus on evaluation of call centers and remote order entry provisions. We've heard from the public that these are areas that we need to focus in on. The status of our goal.
Especially now.
Yeah. The status of our goal 1.5 details the efforts undertaken. And as I've indicated in my comments for the committee's first goal, the long-term solution will be linked to the business modernization efforts. And then moving on to goal 1.6, the board is currently implementing new licensing programs. And as further noticed in our status update for goal 1.7, the committee will be performing benchmark activities as part of our assessment of these licensing programs. So that's kind of a quick overview. I didn't want to read through each one of them because they are quite lengthy, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at them. So just provided kind of a high overview based on discussion at our last committee meeting and the progress by the committee, which I appreciate everyone on this committee. They're very hardworking and they take their job very seriously. So I appreciate all the efforts of the committee members for licensing. With that, that's it.
Great. Thank you very much, Debbie. Now, Maria Serpa, it's your floor regarding the Enforcement and Compounding Committee, which you chair.
Thank you. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read the summary. It's a 2-page report. I'm just going to go over it briefly. No, you can't hear me? Oh. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. That's right. Our goal number 1 is to shorten the cycle times from investigation to resolution of cases, to minimize patient harm and enhance consumer protection. Investigation processing times are reported at meetings, and so we routinely discuss them. And of additional note is the committee is continuing to consider parameters for an alternative enforcement model, and that will be an ongoing discussion. Goal number 2 is to strengthen patient consultation outcomes and increase medication safety. This also is reported annually on compliance that was observed through the inspection process. Goal 3 is to collect data and report to the board about enforcement trends. There are enforcement statistics that are routinely reported to the board, and it's reported in a multi-year so you can look at patterns and trends. Goal number 4, someone have a question? Goal number 4 is evaluate industry technology trends to develop future regulatory infrastructures to promote patient safety. Most recently, there's been a lot of work on the automated drug delivery systems. We've discussed different projects, and you will see later in the agenda discussion about the self-assessment and licensure of the ADDSs. Number 5 is to evaluate the disciplinary process and initiate process improvements for enhanced efficiencies. And interesting there on bullet point number 1 is that in coordination with the Office of the Attorney General, the board initiated a process to improve efficiencies of the disciplinary process. And in addition, this also falls into the discussion that we're having about the alternative enforcement model. Number 6 is investigate options for interoperability of the National Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. And there was a bill that passed that gives the authority to the Department of Justice to enter into these agreements across state lines. And the Department of Justice is in the process of implementing these provisions. Number 7 is a process to submit complaints about inspectors anonymously and report back to the board. Last year, the board developed a brochure that was distributed to licensees of items to consider and be prepared for at the time of inspection. And in that brochure is the information on how to file a complaint or comment about the inspector. Number 8, collateral consequences of post-discipline and research options. We've decided to review the board's disciplinary guidelines again. We just was done most recently. That's an opportunity to review that and to include that under this goal. Evaluation of the citation and fine program. That's another one of the statistics that's reported to the board periodically. And then lastly is to review the role and responsibilities of the PIC. The board agreed that there is an opportunity here for more discussion and education with the community. And so we'll be discussing those more as we review the disciplinary guidelines. Are there any comments or questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. And now, since it's 3 minutes to noon, I'm going to call our break for lunch, and we'll return at 12:30.
Okay,
Thank you
this
all
is the moderator.
for your participation so far.
Thank you,
Go
Board
ahead.
President. Just wanted to let the board members know that I will be muting all the lines while they are breaking for lunch. So upon when we reach 12:30, the board president will, just like with our first break, check in with everyone to make sure that they are there, and you can unmute your line and confirm that you're back. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. The strategic plan. And the next committee that is up for discussion is legislation regulation. So I will turn the committee over to me since I'm the chairman of that, and I will read the goals. I'm getting some feedback, moderator. Is there
yeah, Greg?
Some reason for that?
Yeah, Greg, this is Ricardo. I thought Communications and Public Education Committee, we had that report.
Yeah, you're after me.
Okay, that's fine. Just looking at the order. That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if you notice, just above Communications and Public Education, after Maria, it says next committee's legislation and regulation.
Not on the copy I have, but that's fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, if you want to go first, it's okay.
No, it doesn't matter. Mine's
Would you like?
quick. Let's go ahead and do yours, and I'll just finish up afterwards. That's fine.
Okay. Well, mine's quick too. So, okay. Our goals at legislation regulation are first one, educate the board on national pharmacy initiatives impacting consumers and the future of pharmacy, to strategize the board's efforts in alignment with where the profession is going to be in 2020. Well, as you can tell, this was written a number of years ago. In the past, the former executive officer would provide updates from national meetings she attended. Since the retirement of the former executive officer, board staff have not had the opportunity to attend the NABP meeting. However, we do have one coming up next week that's going to be done electronically, and Sodergren and myself will be attending that meeting. Our next goal would be support legislative and regulation proposals from board approval to enactment to effectuate the goals of the board. The board submitted its sunset report in December 2019, which included several legislative priorities. Due to COVID-19, the legislature has been in recess for a few months, delaying consideration of the board's sunset report and legislative proposals. Further, the board currently has 17 regulation packages that are in various stages of promulgation. The next goal is advocate for or against legislation that impacts the board's mandate for consumer protection. Once again, due to COVID-19, legislature has been in recess and has not considered any of this legislation. Fourth goal is to establish a systemized ongoing review process for board regulations to improve and maintain clear and relevant regulations. Board staff and council continue to collaborate to improve the quality of regulation packages, including ensuring regulation language is clear, consistent, and necessary. Further, the DCA has established a regulations unit to perform preview of regulation packages. that's the end of my report on the strategic plan for Ledge Reg. Now I'll turn the
Greg, this
floor
is Maria.
over to Ricardo Sanchez, who chairs Communication and Public Education.
Greg, can you hear
You're
me
up.
before you move on?
Yeah.
I had a question or comment on 3.1.
Okay.
And first wanted to thank you that I think it's really great that we are going back to being present at the National Forum for meetings for you and Ann to be participating in the meeting next week is wonderful. One of the things I think we need to do also is what we haven't done for the last several years is to be vocal and as a leader at the National Forum. So it's more than just attending and bringing back information to the board, which is part of it, but also to provide information at the national level about the proactive and good things that are happening in California, and to emphasize maybe some of these things to be done at other states or more of a national process. And in the past, states have looked to California as to where we were going. And so going to national meetings provides that opportunity also.
Thank you. I agree. And we do intend to be more than just attendees. So, that's a great suggestion. And actually, I think I may want to talk to you about it more before the meeting. So thank you.
Yeah, and this is Cheryl Butler, and I wanted to just chime in on what Maria just said, because I've actually attended a NABP meeting in San Diego, and I think it really is important that both you and Ann are involved, and California is, because I remember when I went how much they respected what California had to offer and what we were doing. So I, again, appreciate the fact that the two of you are going to attend by webcast NABP.
Thank you. Okay, it is now time to turn it over to Ricardo. Are you ready, Ricardo?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, mine's going to be pretty short here. It's the Communication and Public Education Committee. Update on communications to licensees and stakeholders regarding COVID-19. The background: on March 4th, 2020, Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency in California in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Update: the board has acted quickly and continuously to communicate important information to the licensees and stakeholders. Staff also has worked closely with DCA to review and coordinate all public messages related to COVID-19. On March 5th, staff issued a subscriber alert advising licensees how to request waivers to pharmacy law provisions in order to aid in protection of public health or provide patient care. Starting March 17th, staff began issuing subscriber alerts advising licensees each time a new pharmacy law waiver is approved. All waivers issued to date also have been posted on the board's website. In addition, staff posted frequently asked questions related to COVID-19 on the website, along with a joint statement regarding improper prescription of treatments that was issued jointly by the Board of Pharmacy, the Medical Board of California, and DCA. The website also contains additional resources for licensees and the public, including guidance documents issued by the state and federal agencies, and links to COVID-19 websites established by the Governor's Office, CDPH, CDC, and FDA. Any questions from board members?
This is Noreen, your counsel. I just have one question. Are we still on the strategic plan?
Yes.
Okay. So I think maybe we went a little bit astray with the.
I think Ricardo's doing his committee report. Yeah, Ricardo, can you see the screen? The screen is the strategic plan that we're going through.
Okay, I thought we were going through the communication public the committee report.
I think it's the committee.
No, the strategic plan. That's okay.
Committee different document.
Okay. I was giving my communications report. Okay. Well, as you guys could, gosh, the print is really small here. Hold on. There we go. Thank you, the moderator, for bringing that, making it bigger. Develop and implement communication plan for licensees and consumers to improve communications and keep stakeholders better informed. Status: the board has expanded its communications to both consumers and licensees. These efforts do not allow a written communication plan. Identify and use additional resources for public and licensee outreach services to implement the communication plan. Status: the board has expanded into social media to communicate with the public and licensees, in addition to relying on its website, newsletter, and subscribers alert. The board has hosted live CE training events throughout the state and produced 3 online CE webinars for licensees. The board has moved its meeting locations throughout the state, increasing public exposure and awareness of the board's activities. 4.3, establish process to collect email addresses and mobile numbers for text messaging from all licensees for better ability to improve communication. Status: the board has implemented regulations regarding pharmacist, intern pharmacist, pharmacy technicians, and designated representatives to register their email address to receive subscriber alerts. And I know most of you are able to read all of this, but for the public that's listening in and is not able to see this, I'm reading it off. 4.4, I believe that's where we were before you scrolled up there, moderator. Provide implementation guidance on newly enacted changes to pharmacy law by publishing summaries and explaining implementation tactics. The status: the board maintains a pharmacy law book online and publishes annual summaries of the new laws online and in the script. The board also issues subscriber alerts and publishes facts and questions and guidance information on major laws and policies, including inventory reconciliation, compounding matters, and changes to security prescription forms. 4.5, inspect pharmacies at least once every 4 years to provide a forum for licensees, inspector communication, and education and practice settings. Status: the board is creating an informational brochure and provides information in the script to improve communication between inspectors and licensees during the inspections. Inspector staff are performing routine inspections. Common discussion points are shared among inspector staff to facilitate more standard communication. And can the moderator, yeah, there you go. Thank you. 4.6, communicate the availability of new or specified pharmacy services and locations so that the public is aware of pharmacies that can't meet their needs. Status: the board has created an online search tool to help consumers find drug take-back locations. In addition, staff is developing a search tool to help consumers find pharmacies providing special healthcare services. 4.7 is revised consumer-facing materials, posters, point to your language notes, television messages, to achieve better consumer understanding of their rights and optimal use of medications. Status on that: the board has updated a consumer brochure about the risk of buying drugs online. Staff is working to review and update additional consumer materials as needed. And the moderator, there you go. Promote board initiatives to improve patient knowledge, medication adherence, and medication safety. Status: prior to the pandemic, board staff was working to attend more outreach events targeting consumers as well as licensees. Recently, staff worked with DCA to publish an online article with consumer tips on filing opiate prescriptions and talking to their pharmacists. Any questions, members?
Nope.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Yeah, Ricardo,
Do you
I
have
have a
one?
question.
Yes.
Yeah, what I like to see is that, we have a lot of DUI disciplinary. I would like to see on the, when we send out the licensing renew, we could do the same thing like the DMV, maybe put a little notice warning them about DUI and getting disciplined. When you get a license renewal, they put you the alcohol level, etc. And if we could put some kind of notice warning the licensee that they will get punished by being a DUI. I think a lot of them do not know that. So I think a lot of them get surprised. So I'd like to see when we send out renew, send a notice along with it.
Are you talking about to the licensees when we issue their license?
Yeah, when they renew their license.
To let them know a notice for everybody alike, or just to those individuals who have had a DUI?
No, and everybody.
Okay, so it might be
all licensee renewal, notice.
Okay,
Send some kind of notice to let them know about disciplinary result from a DUI.
Okay, maybe we could put a notice on the website. But again, I'd like to
not everybody go to that website. Nobody see it.
Well, I think Bob and our staff at the pharmacy board, they've been doing a great job with our website. Maybe we can get some feedback and some suggestions from our staff on how to better communicate that with our licensees.
But when we get a driver license renewal, we get a warning on those DUI notice, right? Do you notice that?
No, I mean I'd have to.
You never renewed your driver license.
I've never had a DUI, so I don't know.
No, they warn you about certain alcohol level and then a 0.08 and blah blah blah. No, basically I just want the licensee to know that when they get DUI, they will get disciplined. Something like that. Okay. Bob
Davila, are you online right now? Bob?
Ricardo, this is Anne. I hope it's okay that I'm jumping in here.
No, please.
What I would recommend is that this be included as an agenda item for discussion at a future Communication and Public Education Committee meeting.
I think that's a good idea. I just want to be able to give have the staff, research it and give us back their point of view also, since it's easy for us to just say do something, and it may be a little bit more complicated than that sometimes.
Yeah, so I think that's the value of adding it to a committee agenda so that we can thoroughly understand exactly what the request is and get into some of the weeds a little bit. Right now, we're just kind of focused on the strategic plan goals.
Exactly.
So we could identify which goal that falls within and then schedule it for a future committee meeting.
Okay.
That is considered my goal.
Okay. Any more questions or any more questions from the board members? Hearing none. Any questions from?
Okay. Thank you, Ricardo.
Okay, good. Then that's the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the final committee for discussion is organizational development. And let me put on my other hat. The goals of organizational development are as follows. As you can see on the screen, those who are able to see the screen. Conduct a full annual review of the board's strategic plan to monitor progress. The status is that the board's strategic plan was updated October 2016, 18, and 19. The next review of the board's strategic plan is scheduled for May 2020 at the board. Well, that's today because we're doing it. Okay. Next, 5.2, provide leadership training opportunities to managers to expand skills and improve performance. Status is all management staff completed biennial sexual harassment prevention training in 2019. Leadership, communication, and performance management trainings were scheduled but subsequently canceled due to Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-25-20, dated on March 12, 2020. Third goal, expand annual individual development plans for staff to promote growth and development. Status, approximately 3 individual development plans and 21 performance appraisals were provided to inspector and office staff. Because of changes to union contracts, annual individual development plans are no longer required. Rather, staff must elect to participate in the process. Next goal, collaborate with Department of Consumer Affairs to explore the feasibility of procuring electronic management tools to increase efficiencies and reduce reliance on paper. The status is the board continues to work with the Department of Consumer Affairs on business modernization, which will replace legacy systems as well as include workflow design improvements and scanning management. Number 5, maintain procedure manuals to capture institution knowledge and enable consistent operations. The inspector training manual was revised in February 2020. Standardized training plans were developed and are used to onboard new staff. Goal number 6, establish customer service metrics to track board efforts to meet customer expectations. Approximately 40 post-inspection surveys were conducted by chiefs of enforcement prior to Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-25-20, which was dated March 12, 2020. Goal number 7, evaluation options for improvement of licensing renewal processes to allow for online renewal. In 2019, the board implemented online license renewal payments for individual licenses and is working with the Department of Consumer Affairs to secure online renewal payment for facilities. And the last goal, number 8, in collaboration with the executive officer, ensure appropriate resources for board issues relating to staff activities and development. Status, over the past 18 months, field staff have completed USP training. In addition, several field staff CGMP training and limited staff participated in training provided by the FDA. In addition, field staff participated in board-provided trainings covering new laws, inspections, and requirements for new licensing programs have also occurred. Office staff completed customer service training, and management staff received training the budget change proposal process. Now, I want to add something to this, and that is, as the inspections resume, I would like to see an increase in the number of post-inspection surveys completed, and I'd also like to see a more formalized semi-annual updates on the board's business modernization efforts. Are there any comments from members? Okay, no comments being heard. That's the end of that. Members having considered the strategic goals for each of the committees, I would entertain a motion to make changes to the strategic goals if deemed appropriate. Does anybody wish to make a motion to change any of the strategic goals? Not hearing any. I will ask the moderator to open the lines for any public comment.
Thank you. We have activated the question and answer box, and we are displaying on the screen the question and answer panel so that folks can see how to request that they would like to make a verbal public comment. To do so, you can simply put, "I would like to make a comment," in the question and answer box that is open now, and you will be called upon and provided 2 minutes to make your verbal comments to the program after having your mic unmuted by the moderator. At this time, no one has indicated they would like to make a public comment, so I'll pause for just a few more moments to see if anybody would like to make a comment on this item.
Thank you.
Board President, I see no one indicating they'd like to make a comment, so I'll close the comment period now.
Great. We're moving on to agenda item 10. Now we're getting to the committee reports. The first committee report will be on licensing, and that will be from Vice President Debbie Veal. Debbie, go ahead.
Hi. So we have not had a licensing committee since our last board meeting due to the COVID situation. But, things have progressed. First off, on April 30th, the OAL approved the board's emergency regulation establishing training course parameters for pharmacists to provide PrEP and PEP under the authorities of SB 159. As we previously discussed, board staff in collaboration with DHSC, Office of AIDS, and experts in the area have developed a training program, or are developing a training program, that will comply with the provisions. Unfortunately, because of our crisis, our COVID crisis, there has been a delay in completing the training. It is my hope that the detailed framework for the training to be offered by the board will be ready for committee and board consideration either the June or July board meetings. So others can provide training. It's just simply the board's own training is what's delayed. Is there any questions for the members of the board?
Not hearing any. Thank you, Debbie, for your report.
Well, no, I'm not done yet.
You're not?
I just have questions about that topic.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if there's any questions from the public or comments from the public.
Well, we'll have to open the lines for that. Yeah, go ahead, open the lines. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open the lines now for public comment. So the question and answer box is now appearing for folks from the public. If they would like to make a comment, go ahead and do so by typing in, I would like to make a comment in the question box, and then the moderator will unmute your microphone so that you can make your comment to the board. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board once your microphone is unmuted. I'll pause a few more moments as no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment. Okay, no one has indicated they'd like to make a comment. I'm closing that out now.
Okay. So item B is a review of the licensing statistics, and it's included in your meeting material for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year. As you know, our fiscal year is July through June, so it's the first 3 quarters of that year. I received more recent licensing information indicating that in April, the board issued 784 licenses, including 486 pharmacy technician licenses, 88 intern licenses, and 70 advanced practice pharmacist licenses, as well as 5 pharmacist licenses. I was advised that only 1 individual took the exam during the April 21st administration. In addition, processing times as of April 24th, as well as the processing times from January, were provided for comparison. I note the reduction in processing time for some of the application types, with the exception of the non-resident pharmacies and clinics, and all initial application processing times are at or below the 30-day point. Overall, this reflects an improvement from the prior reporting, and there's also improvement noted in the processing time for deficiency mail, including significant reduction in processing time for pharmacies, non-resident pharmacies, and sterile compounding pharmacies. So first off, I do want to thank the staff for their huge effort in moving the processing times. Because as Cheryl indicated earlier in our committee meetings, this is something that we hear about, and I'm sure all board members and quite a few of the stakeholders on the phone can attest that sometimes in the processing times exceed beyond our goals, that it's frustrating for everybody. So thank you, staff, for everything you've done, especially in this funky time. With that, are there any questions from the committee members? Greg, I don't know if you want to open up to the public.
Yeah, we will. Moderator?
All right. This is the moderator. We'll open up the public comment question and answer box again. So we have opened that up as we have throughout the meeting, and you can enter your request to make a comment by typing I would like to make a comment in the question box. We will then unmute your microphone, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. At the conclusion of 2 minutes or the end of your comment, your microphone will be muted again. At this time, no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment. I'll pause for just a few more brief moments before closing out the question and answer box. All right, no comments, Board President, so I'll close it down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Now we move.
That is the
Yes.
licensing committee report. I turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 11. I'm now going to turn the meeting over to Maria Serpa, Chair of the Enforcement Committee, for her report. Maria, please go ahead.
Thank you. We haven't had a recent Enforcement and Compounding Committee meeting, but there have been much activity as of late, not just regarding COVID and the waivers, but also regarding USP update. So I have one action item and then a report to bring to the committee today. Our action item is labeled A, which is discussion and consideration of the policy statement regarding the applicability of board compounding regulations and USP compounding chapters while pending appeals before USP. So as a reminder, I know there's a lot of information here, but as a reminder, on September 23rd, USP announced the delay of the official date of the revised chapter 795, 797, and new chapters 825 until further notice. As a part of its November 2019 meeting, the board voted and released a policy statement to ensure that the stakeholders have a clear understanding of the legal requirements for compounding. Most recently, on March 12th, USP issued final decisions on the appeals to the revisions of Chapter 795, 797, and the new Chapter 825. It is remanding the chapters to the Compounding Expert Committee for recommendation for further engagement on the issues raised concerning specifically the area of beyond use provisions. In light of the appeals decisions, it appears appropriate for our board to consider an update to the policy statement. So if you look at Addendum 1, that's the suggestions of it's our recommendations to update the policy statement that we would provide for our stakeholders. So if you have a chance to look at Appendix 1, is that something that we could project?
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's something that is available to project, but it's in our package.
This is the moderator. Anne, is that something that we've been provided that we can present?
No, I apologize. It was not. It is in the packet and posted on the board's website.
So just real briefly, I'd like to suggest a motion that we approve the revised policy statement as provided in our package. And basically it updates the information to make it more timely as a result of USP's announcement on March 12th.
I will second that. Okay, do we have member comments on that? Let's open it up to the board, to the public.
All right, thank you, Board President. This is the moderator. We'll go ahead and open up the question and answer box now. And I will remind members of the public if they would like to make a comment, they can do so by typing in the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box, and the moderator will call on them and unmute their microphone so that they can address the board. There will be a 2-minute time limit for individuals making public comment. And once that 2 minutes is up, the microphone will be muted or whichever occurs first, whether it's the 2 minutes or the conclusion of the comments, their microphone will be muted. We do have one individual as of right now who's indicated they would like to make a comment. Individual who's identified themselves as Danny Martinez. So Danny Martinez, I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. Danny Martinez, your microphone is unmuted.
Hi, thank you. This is Danny Martinez with CPHA. Fully support this. I do have one question. On the last paragraph, it does say that the board does not intend to pursue changes to the current regulations. My question is it the desire of the committee and of the board for the package of regulations that's currently within under review for changes to USP 795 at the Department of Consumer Affairs, is the desire to keep that package there or to bring that back to the board for further consideration?
So, Mr. Martinez, you quoted something you said was in the last paragraph. Can you repeat where that is? I don't see it on here.
Yes. So it says, and I'm sorry, it's not the last paragraph. It's the paragraph right before the link. It says the board's compounding committee has been reintegrated into the board's enforcement committee. At this time, the board does not intend to pursue changes to the current regulations governing compounded preparations. That question right there is what I was referring to.
And Anne can correct me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, at our last board meeting, we brought back the regulations that we had originally promulgated for non-sterile compounding. And so at this point, we don't have any regulatory packages out there regarding compounding. Anne, isn't that correct?
That's consistent with my recollection as well.
Yes. So there's no regulations pending on any of the compounding language changing.
This is the moderator. I muted the individual's microphone as I understood they were done making comments, but they do have a little bit of time left. I'm going to unmute your microphone
go
again.
ahead and unmute. Right.
You're
Okay.
unmuted, Danny Martinez.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that answers my question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Danny.
There is no further comments, Board President, so I'll be closing out the question and answer box.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Maria, did you want to add any more?
I have nothing to add. I think we're ready for the vote. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. Here we go. Ryan Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Yes.
Thank you. Debbie Veal.
Yes.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
Yes.
Thank you. Ricardo Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you. Albert.
Yes.
Thank you, Albert. Shirley.
Yes.
Thank you. Jig.
Yes.
Thank you. Sung.
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes. So the motion carries. Next item is, well, it's the committee report for communication public education.
I'm sorry.
I know that.
Greg, I still have one more thing on the enforcement committee. I'm sorry, Greg.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So just the last part, item B on the agenda is review of the enforcement statistics. That's included in your package under attachment 2. This is a regular routine report that's provided to the board members and to the public. And unless you have any questions, that would conclude the report of the Committee of Enforcement and Compounding.
Okay, thank you. Let's open the lines if anybody has any questions on this. Moderator.
All right, we will open up the public question, the Q&A feature, so that the public can indicate if they would like to make a verbal comment to the board. I've opened that up now, and if you'd like to make a comment, please insert the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box, and then your microphone will be unmuted and you can address the board. You'll have a 2-minute time limit to conclude your comments, and at the conclusion of that, your microphone will be muted. At this time, there is no one who's indicated that they would like to make a public comment on this item, so I'll pause just a few more brief moments before closing it out.
Okay.
All right, no one has indicated they'd like to make a comment, so I'm closing that out now.
Thank you. Okay, Ricardo, you had made your presentation before. Is there anything you would like to add to it? Or
no, that it was just
no.
Everything was just informing folks on the just updated. That's all. But I put out all the information already.
Okay.
Nothing to add.
And at that time, I don't think anybody made any comments, so I think we can go forward. Next will be
President Lippy.
Yeah.
President Lippy, I would recommend that members have the opportunity to provide comment as well as the public.
Okay.
Would it be easier for me to read it again? It's not that long. If you want.
Well, I think they have it in their materials, and you already read it, so I don't think you need to do it.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Do any members have any comments?
I would just like to comment that I appreciate knowing that that the staff posted frequently asked questions related to COVID-19 on the website.
Thank you. Okay, moderator, I guess you should open it up.
Thank you, Board President. We'll open up the public comment option again for the public. So individuals who would like to make a comment can do so now by typing in the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. We will then unmute the individual's microphone so that they can have 2 minutes to make a comment to the board. At the conclusion of those 2 minutes, we will mute your microphone and move on to the next individual who's indicated they would like to make a public comment. I'll pause just a few more brief moments as no one has indicated they'd like to make a comment on this item yet.
Okay.
All right, I'm closing out the public comment now.
Thank you. Okay, next agenda item is agenda item 13, which is the report of the Legislation Regulation Committee. As chair of that, I will deliver the report. Okay. Members, as detailed in the meeting materials, the board has several regulations in various stages of promulgation. Agenda item 13A. This first item is a proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1746.3 related to the naloxone fact sheet. As included in the meeting materials, this regulation was approved by the Office of Administrative Law on January 27, 2020, and took effect on April 1, 2020. Agenda item 13B. The next 3 regulations are undergoing final review by the Office of Administrative Law. The first is a proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1707.2. This proposal amends the board's regulations regarding the duty to provide consultation for mail-order pharmacies, establishing minimum thresholds for the consultation. The second proposed regulation is to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1706.2, which updates the application abandonment language to include all licensing programs to ensure that all applicants have appropriate notice about the requirements for abandoning an application. As included in the meeting materials, the proposal will also reduce the administrative workload associated with the need for frequent amendments when new licensing programs are established. The third proposed regulation is the emergency regulation to add Title 16 CCR Section 1747 related to independent HIV PrEP and PEP prophylaxis furnishing. As we were advised during the licensing committee report, the emergency regulation was approved by the Office of Administrative Law on April 30th. Members, are there any comments on these regulations? As a reminder, if there are, please remember to open your line and identify yourself. Okay, moderator, let's open it up for the public.
Thank you, Board President. We'll go ahead and do that now. So I am opening up the question and answer panel for individuals to indicate if they would like to make a comment to the board. They can do so by typing the phrase, "I would like to make a comment" in the question box now. Their microphone will be unmuted and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. At the conclusion of that, their microphone will be muted again. At this time, we do not have anyone who has indicated that they would like to make a public comment, but I'll pause a few more brief moments just to ensure people have time to chime in if they need to.
Thank you.
Okay, no one has indicated they'd like to make a comment, so I'm closing out the question and answer box now.
Okay, next is agenda item 13C. As indicated in the meeting materials, the board has 7 regulations that are in various stages of pre-notice review. The first such regulation is a proposed regulation to add Title 16 CCR Section 1717.5, which will establish regulatory requirements for automated refill programs. As indicated in the meeting materials, this rulemaking package was returned to board staff to make additional modifications. Staff anticipates completing necessary revisions and resubmitting the package this month. The next item is proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1709, which would amend the board's regulations regarding ownership to include provisions relating to trust ownership of pharmacies. This package is currently undergoing pre-notice review by DCA. Members, the proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1780 to 1783 at sequel would establish the regulatory framework for third-party logistics providers. This package is undergoing review by agency. The next 2 regulation packages relate to updating self-assessment forms, specifically amending Title 16, Section 1715 and 1784. Both packages are undergoing pre-notice review by DCA. The proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1711 and 1713 and add Section 1715.1 were approved by DCA and are now undergoing review by agency. The rulemaking proposal will require submission of quality assurance records to the board, update the board regulations with respect to the use of an APDS, and identify the specific requirements for the annual completion of the ADDS self-assessment forms. The last item in this area is proposed permanent regulation to add Title 16 CCR Section 1747 related to independent HIV PrEP and PrEP prophylaxis furnishing. The permanent rulemaking is undergoing pre-notice review. Members, having briefly reviewed these regulations, are there any member comments? Again, I remind you, if there are, please unmute your line and identify yourself before making your comments. Are there any comments? Okay, not hearing any. Moderator, could you please open the lines?
Thank you, Board President. We will go ahead and open up the question and answer panel so that members of the public can indicate if they would like to make a public comment. And the question and answer panel is open at this time. If you're a member of the public and would like to make a comment, go ahead and type into the question box, "I would like to make a comment," and you will be called upon and your microphone will be unmuted so that you can address the board for up to 2 minutes. At this time, no one's indicated that they'd like to make a comment, so I'll pause for just a few more brief moments before closing out the question and answer box.
Okay.
All right, closing it out now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is agenda item 13D. The remaining 3 rulemakings are all pending with staff to draft the necessary rulemaking documents for submission to the DCA to begin the pre-notice review. The first is proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Sections 1793.5, 1793.6, and 1793.65, which would modify the training requirements and certification programs and update the application for licensure for pharmacy technicians. As indicated in the meeting materials, this rulemaking was returned to board staff to integrate in changes necessary to implement AB 2138 requirements. Staff believe this rulemaking package will be ready for resubmittal this month. The next item is a proposal to amend the drug loss reporting requirements to further define when drug losses must be reported to the board and will provide greater clarity for the regulated public by amending Title 16 CCR Section 1715.6. Board staff anticipate this rulemaking package will be submitted to DCA for pre-notice review in early June. The final proposal under this section would amend and clarify the requirements for the completion on inventory reconciliation activities and reporting as proposed to be amended. It's Title 16 CCR Section 1715.65 related to inventory reconciliation. Board staff anticipates this rulemaking will be submitted to DCA for pre-notice review later this month. Members, having briefly reviewed these regulations, do you have any comments? If so, please unmute and identify yourself. Not hearing any. Moderator, please open lines for public comment.
Thank you, Board President. I will now open up the question and answer panel so that we can have we can facilitate the public's comments on these items. So the question and answer panel is open now. If you would like to make a comment, simply type the phrase "I would like to make a comment" into the question box. You will then be called upon and your microphone will be unmuted, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. As of right now, we don't have anyone indicating that they would like to make a comment, so I'll pause for just a few more brief moments to allow folks to chime in if they have not. No one has indicated they'd like to make a comment, so I'm going to go ahead and close out the question and answer box.
Okay. Next is agenda item 14A, organizational development. First included in the meeting materials is a budget update. Did somebody say something? Okay. Final budget figures are now available for fiscal year 2017-18. During that fiscal year, the board received over $19.9 million in revenue and expended over $23 million. Budget year figures for fiscal year 2018-19 are not yet final. Once completed, members will be provided final budget figures. Regarding the current fiscal year, the board's authorized expenditures for the year are about $26 million. Preliminary budget figures for the first 8 months indicate the board has received about $19.9 million in revenue and expended over $17.5 million. It is estimated that the board's fund will have about 3.7 months in reserve at the end of the fiscal year and will remain relatively flat for the next few years. Members, do you have any comments? Okay, not hearing any. Moderator, please open the lines for public comment.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and open up the question and answer panel for members of the public to indicate if they would like to make a comment. I have opened that up now. So any individual who would like to make a comment can do so by typing in "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. We will then call on you, unmute your microphone, and you'll have up to 2 minutes to address the board. At this time, no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment, so I'll pause for just a few more brief moments to give folks a chance to chime in if they so choose.
Thank you.
All right, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment, so I'm going to close out the question and answer box now.
Okay, I'm going to take the next 3 items and read them all before asking for comments from members or the public. Next item is 14B. The agenda item is the reporting of board member attendance at board and committee meetings. Thank you all for your continued commitment to the board and to the California consumers. The attendance record is in attachment 2 of section 14. Item 14C. Members, as you will note in the meeting materials, the board has 15 vacancies. It's my understanding that recruitment efforts are in various stages. Next is item 14D. The final item is a calendar of board and committee meetings for the remainder of the year, which you can see in attachment 3 to section 14. As the crisis continues and conditions continue to evolve, I would anticipate changes could occur with the schedule. I appreciate everyone's understanding and flexibility. Members, are there any comments related to items 14B, C, or D? If so, please unmute and identify yourself. None being heard. Moderator, let's open the lines for public comment.
All right, thank you, Board President. We'll go ahead and open the question and answer panel now. And members of the public that wish to make a comment should do so by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." You will then be called upon and your microphone will be unmuted, and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comment to the board. At this time, we do not see anyone indicating they would like to make a comment, so I'll pause for just a few more brief moments to allow folks the opportunity to indicate that they would like to make a comment. All right, no one has indicated that they would like to make a comment, so I'm closing out the question and answer panel now.
Okay, thank you. To all members of the public who observed or participated in the meeting today, I thank you. The board will now proceed to closed session. As indicated on the agenda, the board will convene in closed session to deliberate on disciplinary matters, discuss pending litigation, consider exam-related information, and evaluate the performance of the board's executive officer. As indicated on the agenda, the board will reconvene in open session to adjourn the meeting. That portion of the meeting will not be broadcast and no board business will be conducted. Thank you all for participating today again, and we will be terminating the WebEx now to allow members to convene in closed session. Thank you again.